I would like to call the meeting of the Carver Select Board July 23rd, 2024 meeting to order. This will be, part of this meeting will be a joint meeting with the Carver Redevelopment Authority. This meeting is being recorded by Area 58 Community Access Channel 9. We posted by Area 58 on YouTube as soon as possible. There are openings on several committees. Please refer to the front page on our website for a listing and applications. Would you all mind please standing for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Hoffman, you care to lead us off in the community prayer?
Sure. Almighty God, humbly we pray your blessing as we concern our life with the opportunity to serve our community. Enhance us with your spirit of dignity and selflessness. May we become instruments of support and understanding as we seek to bring an environment of trust and purpose among all who provide the many services that make us all that we can become. Help us achieve the goals of our commitments in this office that is now our responsibility. And especially, we lift our prayers for all the citizens of our community that we have been allowed to serve, that they may discover the fullness and joy of life that we all seek, and keep those serving in our armed forces and our first responders in our hearts and thoughts. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Hoffman.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Before we start the meeting, I just wonder if we could have a moment of silence for our two past members of our board that passed recently, Jim Grimes
Absolutely.
and Frank Casey. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, as usual, the first item on the agenda, it consists of citizens' participation. Is there anyone that would like to come up and make any comments? Seeing no one coming up to the mic. Next item on our agenda is a joint meeting with the Carver Redevelopment Authority for an applicant request for appointment of Alan Germain. Would the Redevelopment Authority members please come up and have a seat over here? And I would just ask that you open your meeting. Chance.
Yes, I opened the meeting. You have to give me a time. I shut my phone off.
6:02.
6:02?
6:02.
It's 6:02. I'd like to open the joint meeting with the RDA at 6:02 for the appointment of Alan Germain. Do I need a motion? No.
Nope. Nope.
Just open the meeting.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Germain, would you please come up and have a seat? So I believe there's one opening on the Redevelopment Authority, and I guess, Mr. Germain, would you, for the people at home, please state your name and address and your background?
Alan Germain, 24 Pine Street, Carver. What would you like for background?
Just maybe your experience with the town on the Finance Committee and some of your background that would be beneficial for the
6 years as
RDA.
Finance Committee Chairman, 6 years on the Conservation Commission at the same time, 2 years on the ZBA, 2 years on the Council of Aging Board of Directors. I'm currently the town moderator, elected this last April, and I am currently also a member of the Capital Outlay Committee.
Thank you. So I guess I would open up the meeting maybe to the RDA members first to have any questions or for Mr.
Hi,
Germain.
Alan. Glad to see you.
How you doing?
Do you want me to go first?
Yes, please.
Okay,
We'll get the hard stuff out of the way first.
Okay. Well, Alan, I know you want to be appointed. We did have a candidate. It was a write-in, but that person declined. You have a vast background living in the town and a wide range of probably knowledge as well. One of my big concerns, though, is ethics. So I'm going to ask you some questions.
Good.
Okay. Ethics is, in our case, the board actually is now in the current throes of working with George McLaughlin, Route 44, and his partner as well. And he came in to talk to us, our last meeting, and he talked to us about the North Carver Water District and making sure that they have water and so forth and so on. I know that your son is on the select board. He's actually the chairman. And I also know that all the select board members are water commissioners. My question to you is ethics, because I'm not quite sure how that would happen, but you'd have to recuse yourself when we are talking about anything to do with that as well. So my question to you, and I'm going to use a percentage, what good is being on a board that you have to recuse yourself 90% of the time?
I'm confused about the 90% number, and I'm confused about...
Because it's conflict, because it's ethics.
I don't see where the conflict is, Joanna. I have nothing to do with the town of Middleborough. What my son does is the chairman of the Middleborough Select Board, and what the town of Middleborough votes for or doesn't vote for at their town meeting has nothing to do with me.
Well, I don't...
I have no input.
I'm not looking at it that way. You would be directly involved.
I'm not involved in any of it.
What would be your opinion?
Of?
Anything regarding that?
Regarding what exactly? North Carver Water District or Middleborough
Yes,
Water?
I'm talking, supposedly.
North Carver Water District has nothing to do with Middleborough's water supply in the town right now. That's an agreement between Middleborough and the Select Board here in Carver. They bailed us out. Where the North Carver Water District goes in the future is all depending upon how much money town meeting wants to cough up to keep that alive. That's the bottom line with that. All the grandiose ideas for North Carver Water District are wonderful ideas. It'd be great if we just had this boodle of cash that we could throw into this district. The problem is, you end up with the same 140 customers. So, where it's going to go, that's entirely up to the powers that be. And the ultimate powers that be in this town is town meeting. How they vote and whether they approve it or they don't approve it. They want to spend the money and bond the money and upgrade the district, so be it.
Are you
If they
ready?
don't, then they won't.
Are you ready to blow the project? Because guaranteeing water is part of this whole urban renewal plan.
Yeah, it's not going to blow the project, and now I'm not ready to blow the project. I want to get this project done. That's the whole reason I applied. We've been playing with this for 6 or 7 years. It's time to have somebody make a decision and do something. We're going to build something in North Carver or we're not. We had the best deal of our life offered to us by Hillwood. That's gone by the wayside along with its $7 million mitigation agreement. That will never come back to this town. We're done. So now we've been getting yo-yoed around up there for how long? This has been going on since before I joined the Finance Committee. We've been playing with this whole project up here. It's time for a decision to get made and somebody to build something. Instead of this on and on and on and discussions and subdivisions and plans, and we got a state grant to redo an intersection, and there's still nothing built up there. There's nothing going on up there. It's time to get something going, and I'd like to see it get done. It's good for the town of Carver. We are desperately in need of that revenue. That's the whole secret to this town, is going to be new growth, and it's going to be predominantly commercial new growth, because housing new growth is a tax negative the moment they turn the key in the lock at the house. It's wonderful to have residents come to the town, don't get me wrong, but from an income standpoint, every resident then brings a child into the school system. Whatever they are paying in taxes on their property don't even come close to the cost of educating that child. So that's a tax negative. Commercial businesses come here, and what we used to say about the solar projects, there's no kids in a solar field. Same thing with North Carver. That's a gift to this town tax-wise. We should exploit that and take full advantage of that and cooperate and get something built up there. That's just my take on it.
Okay, I have one more thing. Actually, I have many more, but at least one. You are a businessman and you have a trucking business, correct? And there's going to be a lot of earth removal on those properties. because you're a member, if you're a member of the RDA.
I'd have nothing to do with that project. I don't get involved in that stuff.
Okay, I said that would kind of count you out. You could not, be having a job or anything with them, so. Also, they could recuse themselves, but being an RDA member and the urban renewal plan is starting to be activated, chances are we can have legal changes with articles to the town meeting. Again, you'd have to recuse yourself because of your position as moderator as well.
I'd rely on council for that. If it's a simple vote or something like that, then probably not. But if it was more complicated, or I was the author of the article or something like that, I'd do like I did with the FinCom bylaw at the last town meeting.
Okay.
I stepped down and I appointed someone to take that.
Okay. Well, I can turn it over to the other people as well. Savory?
You'll have to pass the microphone down,
I'm
please.
sorry. Would help, but
I can speak loudly. Alan, as you all probably know, Alan was on Concom, served on Concom with me for 6 years, ending last June?
Last June 30th.
Right.
A year ago, June 30th.
A year ago, yeah, many years ago.
Seems like yesterday.
And many of those years, Alan was my vice chair of the committee. So we've worked well together on a lot of things. Alan brought to Concom a different viewpoint than most of the sitting members at the time, and it was important to have that because it made the rest of the members, the commissioners, stop and think about the other side of the coin.
Can you give an example? Can you give an example? That would be...
An example. Alan was always concerned with the rights of the property owner as a little bit more forcefully than what the bylaws were in areas where there was a gray area. So he was sort of more on the protective side of the property owners. But what I wanted to say, and is that a good enough example? Okay. Is that okay? Can I get it? Okay. But what I also want to say in regards to that is Alan did his homework, and over the course of those 6 years, learned the bylaws, learned why they were important, and became a lot more conservation-minded than he was when he first started, which is a good attribute to have. I think that you're talking about the getting something done up there. The Hillwood left through a variety of factors, not really town-related, not developer-related.
Some are, some aren't.
Well, but they also were going to build in Middleborough. They didn't. They pulled that too. So it was the changing in the marketplace that was the real driver behind Hillwood leaving here. Anyway, previously, the seat that we're replacing now is Sharon Clark. Sharon was the former chair of the RDA, and she had a strong real estate background, which we have kind of lost. And we do have the ability to hire a consultant when those things are needed. What I think Alan will bring to our board is a financial background that we're also currently lacking. A lot of what's going to happen up there in the future, and there are plans afoot of things that are going to happen, are going to involve financing with the town and taxes. And also, you mentioned givebacks. You know, if something is going to be built there, how do we go about making sure that our community and their employees are safe and have what they need in the town? And that's, that's something that Hillwood was very good at, and something that we, as the RDA and the town, has to be strong about with anything that goes in there. And I think Alan, with his financial background on the Finance Committee for so many years, brings a lot to the table in that arena. Also, as Joanna mentioned, you're a private hauler. You have your own trucking company. But in your everyday business, you have come to know a lot of people who work in construction, and I'm certain that you've learned a lot about the construction business. And I think that that is an attribute also for what is going to be happening up there as we do site visits as things progress. My personal feeling on this is that I believe that Alan will be a good addition to the RDA because he brings certain expertise, knowledge, and experience in the arena of construction and finance that none of the current members really have to a great extent. That may not be 100% true, James, but so anyway, that's just my feeling. I don't really have any questions for you. I've known you pretty well for our time on Concom, so that's really all I've got to say.
Okay. So.
Could you please use the mic?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
people can't hear at home.
As far as the ethics, are you saying that the deal, since they didn't work with Middleborough, that kind of removes the ethics questions that Joanna brought up? The conflict that might be brought up? Or concerns for that?
I don't think there's an ethics question. We aren't going to deal with the water issue as the RDA. That's between the North Carver Water District and the developer. The urban renewal plan, as written, says that Carver has to supply water. So I don't think that we're going to be involved too much in that respect, other than making sure that they have the water that they need. And however that has to happen, it's the town of Carver that's responsible for providing that water.
So forgive me for ignoring you when I was asking that question, because when we take the ethics that we have to take yearly for the state, I just want to make sure that that point that you make, Joanna, is addressed, because they're very firm about that. So I want to make sure that if there is any question, that would disqualify you. So before I get to that, I wanted to see if that point would be, nullified before we even reach it. Second, thank you very much for helping me with that.
All right, just to follow up on that, every question that comes up with ethics every question is different. So if there is something that comes up that does involve us and the Middleborough, providing water, I think that would have to be addressed at the time. And I know that Mr. Germain on Concom recused himself when it was necessary. I do not think that there's a need for him to recuse himself on anything and everything regarding the North Carver project.
So moving on to something else, Joanna had said that you were, that Savory had said that you were a mouth for the owners of the properties that you were defending when you were out in the Concom. And as a member of the RDA, would you be a mouthpiece for the people of the town, not necessarily just the owners of property, but for the people of the town when it comes to defend them?
I think what Savory was referring to is that when I first joined Concom, I'm well aware of the fact that I'm nowhere near, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, Savory, I'm nowhere near the tree hugger that Savory is. So, do I want you to fill in 2 acres of wetland? No, I don't. All right, but if you own a piece of property and we got to give you a 25-foot variance so you can have a pool in your backyard, and that 25 feet is in the wetlands, when we're a town that's 47% wetlands, then yeah, you're a resident taxpayer. You bought your house to enjoy your property. We have a mechanism by which we can allow you to do something in your backyard. Absolutely. So I took conservation from a common sense standpoint. Not necessarily and Savory and I had many a heated discussion over some of what I think are silly laws. And an example is if John, you live on John's Pond, you live on Sampson's Pond, this vista pruning thing. I'm paying a premium to live on this pond. I'm paying a fortune in taxes to be on the edge of the pond. And conservation saying, no, you can't cut these bushes down so you can see the pond. I never agreed with that. I thought that was ridiculous. If I don't want to look at the pond, I can stay at my own house, I can look at my backyard where there is no pond, and I'm not being surcharged for the luxury of living on Sampson's Pond. So it's common sense stuff, is what I'm referring to. And absolutely, the town and the taxpayer, everyone that knows me, knows that I have always advocated for the taxpayer and the resident taxpayer in this town. That's the guy, those are the people that pay the bills. Without them, we're not here. We don't need to be here. They're the reason we are here. And it disappoints me to see so many vacancies on so many boards and committees, and then you hear some of the counter talk about, well, how many boards and committees is he going to serve on, and how many is enough? And Savory gives up a lot of his free time for several boards and committees that he's on. I've done it for 6 years. It's a challenge. John did it for 12 years on FinCom. You know, these are a labor of love is what they boil down to. This is because you want to be involved in your town. And I think Savory's attitude is the same as mine. If we can leave it just a little tiny bit better than we got here, then we've accomplished something. I believe that the entire select board has the same exact attitude as that. And perhaps all of you, I don't know either one of you well, but I would assume that that's the end goal, is that you try to leave something a little bit better than when you got here.
It's good for me.
Just a quick thing. We can hear you very well, but I'm not sure if the people at home can hear you. Maybe do a quick check, but if we can't, we should really get your microphone because...
I'm going to offer this gentleman an opportunity.
I know.
Usually my voice carries.
It does, although I'm not sure if it quite carries to the, over the airwaves.
I only have one question.
Can you hear him okay?
Yep.
All right.
It's working loud enough.
All right, thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Big offer.
I just have one quick question. And it's, since I don't know you really, and I don't know your background or whatever, I was just going to ask, what kind of background do you have in the commercial development side? Because I've spent the last 30-plus years building malls and developing different, office parks and all that kind of stuff. So I was just curious about that side of what experience you might have. Not saying that it's mandatory, I'm just curious.
No, I was in retail oil in the heating business for 20 years. I've been in the trucking business for 25 years. I built 4 houses of my own, and I've been on, I don't know how many construction sites at this point. I'm a licensed operator, heavy equipment operator. There's really not too many mud holes that I haven't found myself in the last 10 years. From start to finish, I was the first truck in on Spring Street on that whole project. And that's completed now. All the excavation work is all done. I've been with SLT for 6 years as kind of an exclusive hauler for them. We built Seaside up in Situate. We built multiple places. We built some 40B housing in Norfolk. They're doing a project now on a rock pile in Canton. They come out with the cheapest house in that neighborhood is $3 million. So it's been the whole spectrum of stuff from start to finish. Did I get in the trenches? No. Do I have that background? No. But can I look at a project and pretty much tell you what I think we're going to need to do? Yeah, I think so. Can't include that.
Okay.
You've been building malls and stuff like that. That's another step beyond me. I did commercial heating the last 5-6 years that I was in the oil business. Branched into commercial just because household got boring. We did some high pressure steam and stuff like that. It's a long time ago.
Okay. That's all I got.
All right, open up questions to the select board. Mr. Ryan?
So what are your goals? What do you think you can offer to help out the RDA and, supplement what they're trying to do?
Get it done. Let's
Okay.
get it done. Whatever the deal, there's always a deal. So it doesn't matter whether you're trying to buy a single house lot down on Main Street and you're working with an individual developer or even a homeowner wants to just buy this piece of land and build a house. There's a deal. There's a process. There's a point where that process becomes detrimental to you being bothered going any further because it's just time-wise. I watched what I perceive as ridiculous delays on the Spring Street project. There's one building in that development right now that is currently on our tax rolls. There are 3 buildings additionally that are built, and they're occupied, but they won't happen till January. This should have been, 5 buildings on that site should have been on the tax rolls by now. But it's just delays and continuances. I think it's negotiation. It's let's get this done.
Yeah, so I'm going to say, so what's causing the delays and how can you help to facilitate so that those, the things move along?
I
What
tend
do you
to
bring
cut
to the
through the
table?
mist a little
Okay.
bit faster sometimes than others. I tend to go right to the source, and when we have a moment, I'll give you a little story that happened in Town Hall about 9-10 months ago. That the former town administrator was shocked that something got solved in 35 minutes. Just because you just go do it. You go and do what you have to do. You knock on a door, you say, let's have lunch, let's get together, let's fix this. What do you need from us for you to do this?
Okay.
What are you looking for? What are your plans? Do you looking for a 10-year TIF? You want a 5-year TIF? You want us to help you with something? What is it you want from us for you to press the button? What's it gonna take? And if there's a solution to be had there and there's some negotiation to be had there, then let's do it. You know, there's always what you want to spend and what they want to charge. And there's always a number in the middle someplace that works. And that's the way it is with no matter what you do.
Okay, so good negotiation skills you're saying you have and understanding
I think that's all that's
how to-
holding this up.
how to
I
have
think
the
it's just
agreements finished.
get it done.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions from members of the board? Nope.
I just have one thing, and I'll just make it public. I believe I'm leaning against this appointment. It has absolutely nothing to do with Mr. Germain. It has everything to do with the fact that Mr. Germain is the town moderator. And I just think that if you were serving on the RDA, that when any article that got proposed at town meeting came up, the proper thing to do would be to recuse yourself from that article. And you're already on the capital outlay. You just got appointed to that. There's a capital outlay article on town meeting warrant every year. So you're already in a situation where you have to recuse yourself from that. And so I just think it's improper for the moderator to be moderating, then recuse yourself, then moderate, then recuse yourself.
Okay.
I just feel uncomfortable about that. So it has absolutely nothing to do with you.
Oh, I'm
It has
sure.
everything to do with the fact that you're the town moderator. So that's where I'm at.
All right, I guess I have a question for the chairman of the RDA. I guess I'm going by the last round with, I guess, Hillwood would be the company. And I should know this, but I don't. And that is, from the RDA's perspective, I guess I've got 3 sections. The RDA will negotiate a deal with whoever might be going in there for any type of development, correct?
No, we do not negotiate.
Okay.
That taxpayer belongs to Route 44. They are the property owners, and they're the ones that negotiate. Our job is to make sure that the care and keeping of the project, that gets done and correct. So what he's saying to you is not going to happen. He can't go and talk to anybody, and that's my point about ethics, and I'll stress it again.
I'm referring to McLaughlin. I'm not referring to the purchaser of the property. George McLaughlin owns the whole site. He's dealing with the RDA. Why
Right, so-
wouldn't you negotiate with George McLaughlin?
George McLaughlin doesn't deal with the RDA. George McLaughlin deals as an individual, a realtor, and he works directly with the planning board. We are informed of what's going on. We don't make any decisions.
So that's, I'm getting back to my question with regards to the role of the IDA versus the planning board, but now versus the North Carver Water District. So I was confused, I thought, at the last round, that RDA seemed to take the lead in what was going on with Hillwood, and then the planning board kind of got involved either in the middle or towards the end. But that's not the case? The planning board gets involved first?
Yeah.
And they're the ones that negotiate with...
Well, they've already submitted, in other words, let me be clear. they're landowners, okay? So Mr. McLaughlin and his partner, Route 40, what's his first name? George, no, the other guy. Bob Delholm. George McLaughlin is the lead on that negotiator to try to get somebody to come onto the property. Most recently, the last meeting, if you were able, and I would ask you I asked you to, when I saw you, if you could watch that program so you could understand what George McLaughlin told us, where they are and what's happening. The most latest thing that's happening, as George said, they're within maybe 6 weeks of signing a purchase and sale on 2 parcels. They're also having some concern with water, and knowing that the town would give them water. Now, the question is guarantee. We'd have to research that because I don't know it, to be honest with you. And I asked Glenn also if he knew, and I guess we're going to research this, because I believe that the town would need to guarantee water. And it would have to come from the North Carver Water District. Second of all, is Middleborough going to supply the this particular Route 44? Are they going to negotiate? I have no idea. Again, it comes into ethics because of Alan's background with what's going on in North Carver. I mean, in the Water District. But reality is, we do not negotiate with anybody. Actually, we want to even sit at the site plan review. And we know, so far we haven't, I have to talk to Tom Bott. Tom Bott doesn't allow boards to sit on a site plan review. But we want to sit there, at least sit there. And so there's a lot of stuff that's starting to happen. And it's going to have a lot of conversation. And we could have articles that have to go to town meeting. We already had 10 of them.
No, I understand, and I'm just trying to separate the pieces. So,
I
as
mean-
so as you said, when the water component, I guess, becomes an issue, the North Carver Water District has to deal with it first in whatever capacity it's in. And then if they can't supply it and they need water, then it becomes, can Middleborough supply the water? But then doesn't that would then pivot to the select board, not the RDA.
Right.
Okay.
As far as I know.
If I may. If I may. Our role truly is as a facilitator, not a negotiating team. We, during the Hillwood project, based on the plans that Hillwood was proposing, Route 44 development came to us as the RDA and said, these are some zoning changes that we need to get done in order to be able to sell this idea. Building height, changing some turn radii mostly planning board or zoning issues. So we were asked to help develop the articles in front of town meeting to change the zoning bylaws to reflect the ability for them to build what they wanted to build. And we did it in conjunction with the planning board. It ended up being the RDA that presented it at town meeting, but we were the ones who presented it to town meeting. Another part of what we facilitated was, as the scope of this project became evident, and we arranged for a weekly meeting with interested parties here in the town, the fire department, the EMS, the police department, the town administrator's office. So we were all on the same page, and that was, and RDA was a part of that, just to make sure that moving forward, that everyone knew what was happening. And it was from those meetings that the community agreement was developed that would have given us this. But we did not negotiate that. That was between, as far as what the fire equipment was, that was from the Chief Weston, and the police needs were all Chief Dufley. We did not do any of the negotiating. We basically brought the parties to the table to talk about it. And our responsibility is to the property because it's a greenfield, or brownfield rather. And it has a URP plan assigned to it. That is why we are involved, but we do not negotiate, we just facilitate. Does that help?
Nope, that explains it better.
Okay.
Thank you.
So my question to Alan would be, at times, you can be overly passionate in a position. So I see this as facilitating a process. The person that comes on this committee needs to be able to work with each other, planning board, I guess maybe or maybe not the developer, towards the benefit of the town. And that would be my only concern, because
That's where the negotiations come in.
when you argue land rights and you take these positions, I listen to you, I understand you, and most of the times I agree with you. But if discussions become more heated, then that would be detrimental to the project. That would be probably my only concern. All right, are there any other?
So I just have a quick question to go back to Savory and Joanna. So I think that's, I don't want to say misconception, but the RDA, I think you opened my eyes up a lot, because I thought the group was more involved with that project. So basically, there's
No.
Mr. McLaughlin's group owns the property. He is now looking to sell portions of it to different, so that RDA does not get involved with that at all.
That's correct.
Okay. So as far as for this project to move forward, what, besides the facilitating, if there's zoning law changes or things like that, that's basically the extent that the RDA gets involved?
We basically make sure that the town is represented as far as all of the guidelines that are in place for an urban renewal plan are met. We're the police for the urban renewal plan, and we have interaction with the state on certain parts of what they're doing there, based on we go to NEPA and other state committees, but we don't negotiate. We basically are a conduit for conversation. We don't have a vote to change anything. We are here to make sure that the town and the developer are on the same page with everything. So we don't go in and tell, we can't tell Route 44 what to do or what not to do. They come to us saying, this is what we'd like to do, and we bring the associated party in the town to that table. So that's where the negotiations, we step back at that point, but we're the ones who kind of guide the respective parties and the correct parties to be the ones that meet.
So for instance, if the planning board needs to get involved, you bring the planning board and the group together to negotiate?
The planning board will be, yeah, I mean, the planning board has a lot more say in what goes on there than we do.
Yeah, we don't.
We're basically watching out for the urban renewal plan itself to make sure that it's followed and see if there are any issues that might arise that would go against the urban renewal plan. But as far as building, zoning, specs, code, price, nothing. We do not get involved in that at all. We're there to help the two groups speak to each other.
Excuse me, I think Jim wants to say something. Do you want to say something, Jim? No. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I mean, John kind of hit the nail on the head. Some of my concerns are, very passionate person, we all know that, but when the passion turns to, I don't want to say rage, but this is such an important group to be with, that we really can't have, I'm trying to think the best word, lashing out or yelling, screaming, talking to people in a bad way, which you've done in the past. And that's my biggest concern, to be honest with you, to be on this committee. We can't have that type of behavior. I do thank you for stepping forward, because nobody else did, to come on this, to apply for this position. But does that mean just because Mr. Jermaine's the only one that applied, we have to take him?
No, you actually, excuse me, you don't. You're more than welcome to vote no. You're more than welcome to vote no. I have plenty of stuff to do. I stepped up because nobody else did for 3 months. I stepped up because I like to see the RDA get this thing done. I'm sorry, I don't agree with Savory in the respect that I wasn't aware that the RDA is simply the school teacher. where we're gonna bring, McLaughlin's already dealt with the planning board. They've got approved subdivisions. He doesn't have to go through them to get to the planning board. So what is the real function now of the RDA? If that is all done and the plans, there's approved subdivisions. So McLaughlin can sell whatever he wants up there to whoever will pay the price and buy it. Then they'll come before the planning board to get whatever building they want to get built, provided it all conforms. Concom had some input into the RDA with the wetland situations that were up there. And there are setbacks and restrictions, and so there's some contamination, which the whole place is off and on in spots. So, I mean, I guess I'm now confused as to what the real role of the RDA is at this point in North Carver, because it's already open, it's already subdivided, and it's already between Route 44 development and XYZ company coming in to buy a couple of parcels of property, then that's gonna come right back to planning. And if they're within the wetlands, perhaps they'll be coming over to conservation. But what's the function of the RDA at that point?
Our role is much less than it than it was when Hillwood was coming because of the scope of that project. These are now individual projects. But if someone wants to build a 100,000 square foot building, not huge, but big enough.
Yeah, I think that horse left the barn, but go ahead.
Right, but, you know, we would then make sure that, that George spoke with the various departments in town to make sure that the safety of everybody would be taken care of. This is sort of preliminary to the site review plan.
I guess that confuses me even more, because George has been dealing with this town, to the best of my knowledge, since 2015, 16, or even before that. So he certainly doesn't need this commission or this association to lead him around and introduce him to various people in town hall, because he's already been down this road a dozen times.
It's kind of like adherence to the
You know?
green office book that they want to have. So it's got to say green. So underneath the government programs that are established, there are guidelines.
Sorry, the microphone should there, but I want to bring up a point of order here, because we're talking about a appointment, and I want to be very careful on this agenda that we're not going to wander into, you know, items that aren't really on the agenda. So I think we need to get back to, you know, just taking a vote for the appointment, and if we do want to, at some future meeting, you know, this is very educational, but maybe we should put something on the agenda for a future meeting.
I think you're right, but I would offer this to Mr. Jermaine. Is this something that you want to table, your
I'll be
request?
more than happy to withdraw.
And, okay. And then
I have no problem with that.
And then you can sit down and have discussions with the RDA to find out exactly what you're anticipating your role might be there, decide if you want to get involved.
I thought it was a little bit more involved than,
Okay.
I just didn't think it was going to be the welcome wagon. That's
All right.
I thought it was more instrumental in getting something done up there. I know, and I'm not going to make the statement on it in front of cameras and everything else, but we all know why Hillwood ultimately pulled out. We all know about the delays and so forth and so on. And this is what's causing the problem in all the new growth that's going on in this town, is incessant delays and continuances. And this has to stop. We're desperately in need of new growth, and I was under the impression that that's what the RDA's objective was.
Yeah, and again, I think we should have that at a future meeting if we
Yeah,
want to
with
have
your
that kind of
permission, we
discussion.
could do that.
But our
Okay.
agenda item is really just for
One
the
last-
appointments.
sorry,
We have
one
to be
last-
I just
careful.
have one last comment. He just made a very general comment. Hillwood, because of the economic situation, Hillwood pulled out.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I
So
think
we
we're
could-
way off agenda here.
Yeah.
We
That's
could
way off
go,
topic.
I'm not going to talk anymore about that, but it would be good if you wanted to have another meeting.
I would say at a separate meeting,
That's right.
we'll address what happened, what the
That's right.
concerns were. As far as this goes, we're just addressing the appointment. Are you deciding to withdraw
I'll
from
be
time
happy
being?
to withdraw.
All right. Well, thank you for your interest in the position, in the
So I'm just trying to help out.
role.
May I just add one more thing, if I may, Mr. Chair? The project in North Carver is not the only thing the RDA does. We take properties that the town owns and doesn't want anymore, they give them to the RDA. Then we go out and we look for uses for them, whether it's affordable housing, and other things. The RDA is not specific
Well,
to.
let me clear one thing up. This is not to diminish the role of the IDA at all.
No, I understand that, but-
So I
but
think
it-
that it'd be good to have a separate discussion
Yeah,
with
we should
regards to
have
working as a team
Yes.
moving
Yes,
forward.
we are a
with-
team,
with- No,
a strong team.
the board, the select board as well, on these issues,
Okay,
okay?
it's fine.
So, but yes, I didn't want you to try to think that you had to
So what, shall we close this
justify.
meeting?
So
Yes,
you
so
can,
you should
you
close
can
your-
close the meeting.
I have a motion to close the meeting. Second? No, any more discussion? All in favor? Aye. It's unanimous. It's closed.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you all for joining. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr.
I believe we have a few people in the audience that may just be here to speak on some of the licenses we have later on in our agenda. Maybe we could take those out of order.
I would
so that those
absolutely
folks
agree.
Could go home.
So why don't we jump down to, let's see, we've got
The
go from agenda
6:45
minutes.
one? Yeah,
6:45.
Let's go to the 6:40.
6:45 one, because it is 6:45, so.
Yep. All right, we have a request for a one-day special license for the Carver Sportsman's Club, at 127 Main Street for 8/25/2027, between 11 a.m. and 7 p.m. Would anyone like to make a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second. Any questions, issues, or concerns?
Mr. Johnson, you here for that? Did you want to say anything?
Did you
or-
want to?
Nope.
Nope.
Good.
Okay.
If you have any questions, I'll answer them.
Just want to make sure we acknowledge you were here.
Thank you.
All right, no other questions, issues, or concerns? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, 0. 4-0.
Just want to say it's a great event they put on every year, so
Thank you.
Always.
a lot of hard work goes into that, we know, so
It does, it does.
we all enjoy it, though.
Yep.
Thank you. All right. Next item is a request for a one-day special license for the Renaissance Foods Limited King Richard's Fair, South Main Street, for August 31st, September 1st, September 2nd, September 7th, September 8th, September 14th, September 15th, September 21st, September 22nd, September 28th, the 29th, October 5th, October 6th, October 12th, October 13th, October 14th, October 19th, and October 20th. Would anyone like to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I spoke earlier with the police chief about all these licenses regarding the fair. Last year, as we may recall, we had a number of meetings in here with the folks from King Richard's Fair prior to issuing any licenses. The chief indicated to me that he didn't believe anyone from public safety had discussions with the fair, so he requested that we table issuing any of these licenses until after he had had a chance to have a discussion with the folks at the fair regarding the licenses.
Okay, so there's been no preliminary discussions that's happened in the past?
And I can't speak to what's happened or what hasn't. I also would say that last year, we had a number of meetings in this room prior to issuing the licenses where we invited the public and made them aware and gave them a chance to speak on some of the issues regarding the fair. And we may want to consider something like that as well. But certainly, I think, we may want to give public safety a chance to talk to folks.
Okay, so is there a motion to table this request until we've had sufficient time to have a meeting with public safety to get any possible concerns addressed?
Well, again, I think not so much our meeting with public safety, it's a meeting between public safety and representatives of the fair. Whether we want to have that here or how that happens, I don't know. But I would make a motion that we table those licenses to a future date.
All right, we have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second for discussion.
Sure.
So
Mr.
what has
Ryan.
been a past practice? I mean, have we had, I know there's been lots of meetings, and there was a plan put together, the plan's been reviewed, and we had some issues last year, but they seem to be resolved with the satellite parking, and it seems like we got something going. So has anything changed, I guess, since last year? Will we put that all into practice? I think after that, we did have some issues with parking and things like that were resolved. And after that resolution, I don't recall of hearing any issues, and I'm assuming that's all still in place today and nothing has changed. But maybe to Mr. Townsend, we haven't heard we haven't had the ability to hear from anybody as to whether the public safety is acceptance of the plan and there's any changes that need to be made. But I know that it was all in place, and I didn't hear any complaints after that was all put into place of any problems after that.
I think there was a meeting that took place, and we have representatives of the fair here, so they could certainly speak to that, but I think there was a meeting that took place after the end of the fair, where we talked about various things. I don't remember exactly what was discussed at that meeting. But again, I think the chief just wanted to have an opportunity to have a discussion with representatives of the fair.
Could we vote to approve, subject to that having, so we don't have to bring it back? So we would make a motion to approve the license, subject to, a meeting being held with the chief and notification back to the town administrator that, he's fine, instead of holding it up?
I think as a courtesy to our public safety folks, it would be, I would recommend that we give them a chance to have a conversation with the fair, and we ask them to come in here and make a recommendation to us as far as the license.
I would invite King Richard's Fair to come up and give us, could you kind of explain, the typical scenario in prior years was that there would be meetings with public safety just to go over the ordinary course of the fair and what's involved and whatnot. I guess I'm surprised those meetings haven't taken place, or have they?
Well, actually, after we had that emergency meeting last year and everything went into place, we had amazing season in terms, not the weather was horrible, as we all know, but in terms of any issues whatsoever. I know Chief DePhilly was very happy with everything, and then we had a recap meeting after the fair season had closed with Mr. Fennessy, who's no longer our town administrator, and all the heads of the stations, chief police, everything. And everyone was very happy with how it had gone. This will be our 43rd year. And again, we never had any issues until right after COVID. And then each year, as you know, we developed this special program with all the chiefs. And we've worked on a plan, and we worked on this, transportation, everything, and it's gone extremely well. I have spoken with Chief DePhilly over the course of the year. We talked about everything being great and working very well. Everyone seemed very happy. The town was happy. We hadn't had more complaints about any traffic issues or people parking on people's lawns. I've already talked with Edaville. We have an agreement with them for auxiliary parking on our busy weekends. We've already talked with the town of Carver, the busing and superintendent of the Carver schools. We have all of that set up. Everything is ready. So I guess I'm confused as to why we would need to have another meeting or delay this process. We open in 6 weeks. We just opened our offices yesterday. We've already started all the repairs and updates on the fair site. So I guess I'm concerned because, again, like I said, Chief DePhilly and I have a very good working relationship together, and we are in contact over the year. And I have not heard anything about what you were just discussing. So I guess I'm a little concerned and confused about that.
And again, I'm not alleging that there were any unresolved issues. I'm simply saying that I think it would be a good idea to hear from public safety before we vote on these.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just say, this will be my first year with King Richard's Fair being here. I would prefer to have the vote postponed until the August 6th meeting. Give me a chance to sit down with the chief, have a chance to sit down with King Richard's Fair, see what the issues are. I have heard some issues about maybe busing in the past year. Make sure we can get those resolved. And again, I think it's something we could be able to turn around before the August 6th meeting. So again, I prefer to have the board give us the opportunity to do that before you vote.
Okay. Toppin, do you have a question?
Can I say one more thing, if
Just
that's
one
okay?
more.
Sorry.
Do you have any questions?
No.
All right.
Was there something that came up in your discussion today that we should be aware of?
No, I simply asked a question as to whether there had been any discussions. That's all, because I think we worked very closely last year. I think the fair, the select board, public safety, we all came together. We worked very closely to resolve some of the issues that had happened in the previous year. And I think we've developed a really, really good working relationship. and I want to keep that relationship going. I think that's really important. That's why I thought it would be important for us to hear from public safety, just to make sure we're all on the same page. That's all.
And maybe I was under the misunderstanding that tonight you guys needed us to be present, which is great because I'm actually in town and we open the offices. And I don't know why, but I figured Chief DeFilly would be here. That was just my assumption. However, again, like I said, we talk periodically throughout the year about many different issues with the fair, and we already have talked with the superintendent. We have an agreement in place. I have busing in place, and everything seems to be going as we had all proceeded and worked closely together to make this function and function well. So I will actually be in town again, I think, on August 6th. I have to commute back and forth to our corporate office, and I have children at home, so that is why. But if at possible, you can discuss with Chief DeFilly in the meantime and let us know, that would be great. You know, we've gone through the same process for the past 43 years of applying for these same permits. I knew this year was the entertainment permit was new, and the Sunday, working on Sundays, I'm not quite sure. Yeah.
It's a Sunday entertainment license.
Thank you.
also.
And so that was new, and we've already paid the fees, we've already done everything we've always done. And then in addition to everything that the select board, as well as all of the chiefs of all the departments have asked. So if you could let us know, that would be great. If we don't have to be back in person to vote on these things, because we're going ahead and we have hired people and we have projects and we're, you know, we work all year to be able to open for the, God willing, 18 days. So.
Absolutely, and Mr. Chairman, through you to Mr. Canada, to both of you, I'm sure there's no reason, if for some reason an in-person meeting didn't work, that you couldn't join us via Zoom, possibly, or something like that. We could accommodate you in that way. That would...
No, I will actually be in, I'm supposed to, God willing, with the whole tech issues and the getting here, because let me tell you, I tried to get here on Saturday, and it took 2.5 days to get here. I should be here as well, and if not, Ryan is absolutely capable of also handling this. I mean, and if you, in the meantime, I'm happy to give Chief DeFilly a call tomorrow too and discuss any concerns he might have, but based on everything that we had talked about earlier this year.
And through our after-action plan, which I believe you certainly were at that meeting, as well as...
I believe Mr. Hoffman and I were both at that,
So,
at that meeting.
you know, we continued on with the plans that were set up the past couple of years prior. Like, these were the issues that we absolutely needed to address and make sure would be smooth. That continued on, as well as, you know, going forward, making sure that the busing is in place super early and set and ready to go for this year. And those were our big concerns, obviously concerns of the town as well.
Yep.
So, and we're just a little caught off guard in terms of that.
Yeah, and again, I just want to, I know I said this once, but I want to say it again, just so it's clear to everybody. I'm not saying there are unresolved issues. I'm just saying that I think it's important that all of us are in the room at the same time, so we're all on the same page going forward.
I think that last year you probably found whatever equation you needed to get the thing to work with as little hiccups as possible. But with the addition of our new team, Mr. Gannon, I'd like him to have some kind of communication with public safety and whatnot. And I think we should be perfectly able to make a decision at our next meeting.
Okay.
Okay?
I do have another question, too.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Ryan.
So I remember, it's coming back to me now, there were a bunch of protocols and things we put into place. We had signs, so just in case, you know, to reduce the traffic for if, you know, you were sold out. So we wanted to let people know before they got off the exit, so to say, or before they got onto the roadways. And then people just be persistent and they keep going, they don't care, you know. So I just wanted to make sure that, are all the same protocols still in place, you know, with respect to signage, you know, at 44 and on the other end of town, to let people know about having to use the satellite parking, and also if you sold out that, sorry, you know, try another day or something like that. You're going to still do the online sales, I'm sure, and all that stuff, and monitor
Yes,
all
and
that.
last year was our first year doing, it was not our first year doing online sales, it was our first year doing specific dated tickets for online. And it did take a transition, because for 41 years, our patrons were used to, they could buy tickets online or at the gate and then go any day they chose, which then proceeded to those issues after COVID. So we have remedied that. And yes, we still have specific dates, absolutely, which helped greatly last year. I mean, we were concerned and nervous, but it worked brilliantly. And then we took the busing issue for that one day that there was an issue, and we got that under control. Like I said, we've planned for everything. I mean, you do your best. Obviously, you can't predict the future, but everything that we've had in place before is not only in place again, but it's in place even earlier.
And we had to borrow signs, I remember,
Yes,
to
we did.
put out.
We
Are we
grabbed one.
still doing that
Yes.
this year? Or
We
some?
borrowed signs, and we got
Okay.
the state to give us some signs.
Right,
We
exactly.
requested some signs from, I
borrow.
don't know, Mass Highway Department, I'm not sure
Okay.
who it was. But
So, yeah, I think we apologize, but I think we have a new town administrator, and then maybe in the future, we should have the public safety officials here, and it's just going through each of them and saying, does anybody have any concerns? Because
Absolutely.
if we took a vote and they do have a concern, then we wouldn't be able to address it, so we'll just
No,
have to do a
absolutely, and
double
I
check with them.
understand that, and I'm
Yeah.
glad that we have a wonderful working relationship with all of the chiefs
Okay.
in the town. And obviously, as it comes to it, we want to have a good business, and we want our patrons to be happy, and we want the town to be happy, so
Okay.
that's fine.
Great. Well,
All right.
thank you for coming in.
So
Okay,
can we make sure that the chiefs are invited to the next meeting?
Sure.
Yeah, or check, at least send you a
least-
letter.
Yeah.
You
At
know.
least have them sign off. If the board actually looks on the entertainment license, on the second page of it, there's actually a sign off for police, fire, and the building department.
Did they all sign it?
They have not, and I guess
Oh.
it was our process not to ask them to sign off on it. I've already directed staff to
Okay.
change that. I want them to sign off on it before the meeting.
Yeah.
So again, if they're willing to sign off, they don't see any issues, I think that's fine. If they do have an issue, I'll have them here at the August 6th meeting so we can address it publicly.
And I noticed, like for things like races that we have in town, we usually get a letter from like the chief saying that
Correct.
I'm approving this. So maybe in the future to make things more convenient,
Yeah.
if they can't be here, at least get a letter from them that they're okay with.
Yeah, I
moving
don't know why we
forward.
don't have the sign off for the entertainment license, I don't know,
Right.
but normally there's sign off for any type of public
Okay.
event.
All right.
All right, well, let's get that taken care of before our next meeting.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
So do you want,
Thank
we have a
you.
motion and a second. Do you
We
want?
have a motion,
Or we're just postponing it. or-
Yeah.
I guess we've got a motion to
Yeah, I don't
approve.
think,
Or do
no, we have a
motion
motion
to
to
post-
table,
table?
but I don't really know if we need to vote
We
to
don't need that. We
table
can just
something.
withdraw the motion and we'll just.
Yeah, I'm good with just putting all the
And just-
licenses that affect the fair off till the next meeting. So,
Okay.
I'll withdraw that motion. I think I made it.
okay.
Okay?
Okay, so I understand.
So you'll come back at the next meeting?
Thank you, that's what I wanted.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have any business cards.
Oh, I don't either, so
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm Amy Sedley.
Amy?
I'm the general manager and co-producer of the
Okay,
fair.
I'm sure my staff has your.
Oh, they have all my, everyone has all my information. Yes, and this is Ryan Roy, he's my production director. Yes,
Okay, thank you.
and it's A May,
May.
not Amy, A
Wow.
May. Just, you know, yeah. No one gets it right, it's okay. All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you so much for coming in.
It's very nice to see you again.
Nice to see you all also.
Thank you.
All right, if I get this right, we've got a 6:55, a request for a one-day special license for Brewery 44 for July 27, 2024 for the Carver Old Home Day at Shirtlift Park.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any other questions, issues, concerns? Hearing none. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 0, 4-0.
Okay. And the next two items are postponed too, right? Because they have to do with the fair. So you're going to put all three of those back
Yeah,
on the
those are
agenda.
the three we'll go back.
So
on
they
the
need to go
agenda,
back on the agenda.
Yeah.
for-
Yep.
Back on the agenda.
Yep, all three of those.
Okay.
So now, getting back to our 6:25,
25?
which is a discussion and possible vote, goals for the Select Board and Town Administrator for fiscal 2025.
Okay.
So, going by memory, I think we did talk, we did review some of these goals. I think we had 3 members of the board.
We did at the last meeting, we had some discussion on each of the goals.
Okay. So I guess we should think about just, unless, Mr. Gannon, I'm looking at the suggested town administrator goals for fiscal year 2025. Do you have any issues, concerns, or thoughts on any of these items that would lead you to concern?
do have a couple, I guess. So one being on number 3, the communications, if you wrote a newsletter, I can tell you not, I'm certainly not opposed to it. Mr. Townsend did mention to me the Town of Middleborough Town Manager's Report, if you get a chance to look at it. I will say, it is 15 pages. It's something I'm willing to work towards, but I just think coming right off the bat, it might be a little difficult for me to duplicate something like that. Yeah. I'm going to, I'm not opposed to it.
Well, so just if I could comment on that for a minute, Mr. Chair. I just sent that over as an example of something I found. I certainly didn't expect you to go into something that expansive right away, and I'm not even suggesting that be the method. I just think that it would be a positive thing for the town if we could find some way of getting information out to people straight from the source, that's all. Because oftentimes, things get changed as the story gets told, and I think it would be helpful to everybody, including probably the town administrator's office, if we could find some way of getting just information out in an unbiased but straightforward way. That's all.
And honestly, again, I'm not opposed to it. I've heard, and I haven't had a chance to track it down, that someone at the COA is doing a newsletter. Honestly, I believe it's more formatting than it really is the content of it. I think Mr. Townsend said it too. I could probably take my town administrator's report and turn that into the report, but the formatting, the kind of the fancy newsletter stuff that catches your eye, I know I'm not good at it.
Yeah, no, I saw that, and I apologize. I went looking for it and I couldn't find it. I found one from another town several months ago. I saw it was literally the newsletter was just a compendium almost of the town administrator report to the select board. It was almost just a listing of those things. I went back to find it. I can't remember what town it was, and I just couldn't find it again. But certainly I wasn't expecting something that expansive. That was a thought I had. And I think it's probably one of the least important, quite frankly, of the town administrator goals on this sheet. I just think that if it's something we could develop at some point, it would be worthwhile.
Mr. Ryan, you have a question?
There may be templates available too, so I would look into that. A lot of times, if you don't have to do the work of the formatting, you may have something where you just have to fill in the sections and just put the news information in there. So, but I do agree. I mean, I often have times where my wife will say, "Hey, did you know this is going on?" I say, "No." She goes, "Well, you're on the board. You should know that that's happening." And it's like just little things, like. For example, the rentals that are going on in Sampson's Pond now, you can rent kayaks. And she goes, "Hey, did you know that was going on?" I said, "No." She said, "Why doesn't the board know that?" So just all that kind of stuff. So always, I think the information to the residents and to the board is important, whatever format we get it in. But I think you might be able to get help by somebody can offer you a template probably and say, you just stick it in this and that's it, you're done.
That is what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, and there's plenty of them out there.
And if I could just give a quick example of where I think something like this really helped, is last year, I don't know if you're familiar with the problems we had with the road leading into South Meadow Village when it washed out. I don't know if you're familiar with that at all.
Yeah, I've heard.
But I was getting a lot of calls from residents over there, and I spoke to John Woods about it, and he put together, we talked about it, and he put together like a little weekly synopsis of what work was going on and what the goals were over there. We published that every Friday, and that went a long way towards solving a lot of people's concerns over there, because they were hearing all sorts of different things from different people, and that was just a short, sometimes it was no more than 4 or 5 sentences. I think a couple of weeks it was almost like, sorry, there's nothing new this week, but it just kept everyone in the loop with really accurate information. And it was simply, there was no formatting at all. It was just a Word document that was half a page sometimes. But.
Any other?
Not on that one. I know there was questions on number 6 and number 7, so I think you probably have those.
Those would be the other two that certainly number 6, getting the MBTA zoning passed.
Maybe facilitate that we have something available for town meeting.
I think that's
probably what it
reasonable.
should say. Facilitate that we have an article ready for town meeting.
So again, I'm going to ask something that
get rid of it.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Right now, when something gets ready for town meeting, I keep thinking, what's our role from the select board? Is it more of a planning board role? Do we actually, obviously we'll vote on it if it's a warrant article at town meeting, but isn't it more the initiative is between the town plan and planning board, I guess?
Correct, it would be. It'd be
Okay, Tom,
me
Mr. Chairman?
working with the
Okay.
town planner, would be working with the planning board to get it.
Because I had advised the select board on the pros and cons of the MPA zoning proposal, but that doesn't sound, I kind of reworded it, but that doesn't sound like it's
Yeah.
really what we need to get done.
And,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, through you, one of the goals, I had it under a select board goal, but I guess it could be combined with the town administrator goal. My select board goal for number 5 was to work together with the town planner and the planning board to make decisions regarding the MBTA zoning. And I know that this really is not a select board item, it's really more of a planning board item, but you will recall, and I forget whether you were all on the board at the time, or whether it was, the makeup was slightly different, but when we had the proposed 40B proposal for Edaville Railroad, even though that really, if they had wanted to go forward with it, they could have gone directly to the planning board, we did have people into this room, and we did, discuss that. And I just think when you talk about the MBTA zoning, I know that there are grants that they can hold back if we don't do it, but there's a lot of costs if it does get built. I mean, and I just think it would be helpful for this board to hear from the police chief about would they need additional officers long-term? What are the impacts on the fire department? What are the impacts on the EMS? What are the impact on the schools if they build that many units? So even though there's cost to the towns in the form of lost grants if we don't do it, well, there could very well be lots of increased costs to the town, not just a one-time grant, but going forward, if we do it.
Well,
So,
I think you're right from an informational standpoint. We should have like a public hearing, as you said, with regards to people can come and speak with regards to their thoughts about it and the public officials and whatnot.
Wouldn't that be something that the the planning board would do? Have a public hearing, and that it's, because doesn't it ultimately go through them?
It does.
So that they would do the public hearing, they would have the public come and speak. Not that, I don't want to step on their toes of,
no,
if this is
and I
something that
think,
should go through them.
if you look at what I wrote, I think we should include the town planner and the planning board. I just think it would be a good conversation, at least so we're informed.
Sure.
Because there could be a lot of impact on the town long-term, as far as, they're the ones that would be in charge of the zoning, but we're the ones that have to deal with the budget when the fire department needs more money, or the police department, or
we have a
maybe
role.
there's departments I haven't even thought of yet, and we have to deal with those budgets. That's why I thought it would be good if we at least heard from some people regarding this.
So should we
That's
just
all.
strike number 6 for the town administrator, since we do have the
I would
number
say,
5?
I'm okay with
I don't see how he can get it
I
passed.
know,
All right.
it just doesn't seem realistic.
Just strike
All right,
it
and rather not, I'd refer to number 7 without saying exactly what it is, but I'm not exactly sure.
I have no idea.
I don't
think
know
we
either.
Makes no sense to me. I think we should strike it if we
Okay.
don't.
I'm going to strike that and the other, and 6 and 7.
Doesn't make any,
So now we're left with 5, and I know
Okay.
there's been questions in the past with regards to ranking these goals. I don't know what the board's feeling is on that, but I do want to be clear with the town administrator, saying that there are certain things that, I guess you'll be reviewed in April. Is that when we typically do a review on them? So there are certain things that we want done before April, by April, and that's, whether you call it a high ranking or whatnot, and want to be fair to you that these things are realistic. We're not going to ask you to put a housing plan together and get an affordable housing plan accepted. That doesn't make sense. You can't do that. So I'd just like to go over these 5 items to state that we do want these to be pretty much done by April. So the first one would be ARPA. I think that that's something that I think September 30th is the date that everything needs to be submitted by, and Mr. Townsend, correct me if I'm wrong, the following year is more of the process going through.
Yeah, and that's why I made it a town administrator goal, because once we finish submitting these things in September, there's really nothing we can do to make sure that they get accomplished. That's all on the town administrator working with the department head, so.
So I guess I'm going to put a star next to that, saying that that's something we expect to have completed by April.
Everyone knows that's my star, so I've been talking about it for
Yeah,
years, so.
And we don't want to have unused funds if we have to, so whatever creativity we can do to make sure that we get the right projects in is very important, and that'll be a fixed one, because that's going to be done this year, so.
And could I just, Mr. Chairman, it's a little bit off topic, but could I just ask you and the town administrator, at the next select board meeting, could we have an ARPA update so we know where we are with all the different?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I think we had brought that up at the last meeting.
Yes, we
and
did.
We're supposed to have it this meeting, but so we should definitely have it.
Yep, we need
Well,
to-
just because, again, if we find we have some money,
I agree.
Yep.
we're running out
No,
of time
it
to use
should be on
it,
our
so.
agenda for next meeting.
Should be on the agenda for all the meetings
I
till
think so.
September
Yeah,
30th.
I think so, maybe just an update, opera
You
update.
won't get an argument from me on that, so
Yeah.
thank you.
Let's
I
just make that a reoccurring agenda item.
Okay.
Yeah, opera update.
So I guess I'm going to go back on the, I'm throwing this out to the board from a standpoint of, do we want to put asterisks next to the items that, instead of ranking, that we expect to be done by April?
I always think that we should rank them. That's just my opinion. I always think we should rank them, so I'll go along with whatever the board wants, but I think ranking them is,
Do we each do some kind of a vote, like we vote on our top three, and then you just, how do you want to rank them? Or do you want to read them
It's
first?
hard.
We should go through them
yeah, we should go
All
through
right.
them first.
And then we can decide how to
All right.
rank them. I mean, one method you could do is everybody gets 3 votes of their top 3, and then we go
Sure.
from there.
Okay, so next item, I mean, I think we've killed number 1, we know what that is.
Yeah.
Next item, work with stakeholders to find a solution to the North Carver Water District. That will include researching the following initiatives. I'm not going to read, we know what they are, we read it last time.
Yeah.
So, is that, I don't think that's something that can be done by April. Would anyone else disagree?
I think we can go a long way toward,
Okay.
we may not be able to finalize it by April, but I think we can have a plan in place by April and know whether the plan is to, a lot of this has to be done in conjunction with the North Carver
Yeah.
Water District, and maybe we need some joint meetings, but, that we have to pick a path, right? Whether the path is to do something with the North Carver Water District or go in another direction. I think we can try to pick a path.
Okay.
So it won't have to be implemented as long as we've gotten to the point where we've looked at all the information and made a decision.
I don't think we could implement it if we wanted to,
Well, I know
because
that.
even if we decided, say, let's do whatever it takes to make the North Carver Water District, as good as it can be, we would still have to go to town meeting and
Sure.
appropriate money and
Yep.
go out to bid, and so there's no way that could be accomplished, I don't think.
So we could instead of say find a solution, maybe propose a solution? That means we're proposing what we want to be able to do.
Well, and that's what this says, I guess,
Yeah.
so we could change it
So
from
maybe
find a
work with
solution
stakeholders to propose a
Maybe
solution
that's
to the
good.
North Carver
Yeah.
Water District might be better wording, and that might be doable. That we-
I think that anything that's going to be done with the North Carver Water District has to be ready for the next town meeting, which is going to be in April.
I agree.
And April is so I would think that, again, working in conjunction with the North Carver Water District, there should be some type of solution, whether it's, that they're out there decommissioning it or seeing what it's going to take to make it work.
And maybe we
That's all we're
should,
looking
maybe
for.
we should establish some type of calendar or something, maybe where we have a quick, even if it's a quick 10-minute meeting, joint meeting with the North Carver Water District that are, every couple of months, I don't know, we could figure how often, maybe but it probably wouldn't be the worst idea for us to just get together and talk about where we are and how things are going, and,
Yep.
And I will say, I know they have a meeting tomorrow night, the North Carver Water District Commissioners, and on the agenda is their discussion of hiring an engineering firm to take an evaluation of the facility. So, they seem to be on board with that, which has been a recommendation
Yep.
from this board.
And again, keeping in mind that this would be your goal, but you're not the sole person in charge of it. Obviously, it's the North Carver Water District working with them.
Correct.
So,
And,
right.
all right.
I think it's important to have the town administrator involved in that, working with the North Carver Water District, and keeping us involved.
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
think that was some of the things
So-
slipped through the cracks, if you will.
Yep, so maybe in the town administrative report at all of our meetings, we should get a brief statement on what's going on with the North
Yeah.
Carver Water District would be useful.
Yeah, quite frankly, when the North Carver Water District initially had their issues, We did that. That was on every town I asked Mr.
really?
Fennessy to put it on every town administrator update, a North Carver Water District update, and sometimes there wasn't an update, but it was there, and yeah, that would be great, I think, if you could.
Okay.
And again, some meetings you probably won't have an update,
Yeah.
but.
Right, but
Okay.
All right, next item, I think we've already talked about already.
Okay, yep.
Fourth item, which is if ARPA is Mr. Townsend's objectives, I think we've got other
This is-
members of the board that are really focusing on this.
Right, we really need that.
Yeah,
we know
work with the
that.
finance director to set up a realistic step-by-step timeline for completing 2006 fiscal budget with the target date of January 31st, 2025. Now, you brought that up last time about, what I'm saying is by January 31st, 2025, and again, you correct me if I'm wrong, is that we're not sitting here waiting for version 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 to come. That we have, you made your guess on what your state aid's going to be, based on the information that you have. We've got a balanced budget, okay? And then if something changes, because really we don't, we have to have it, is it 60 days before town meeting?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah, so if town meeting's April 9th, I think it's 30 days, by March 9th.
30, right? 30.
Yeah, by
yeah.
March 9th, we have to have no more changes. This is done. No postponements, nothing.
Right.
So I think you might have been thinking that by January 31st, 2025, you had to have a balanced budget with realistic state aid and everything else. We want that, but if something changes for the next, 30 days.
Yeah,
All right,
I think it's realistic.
okay.
Okay.
Item 5, good select board decision-making by providing thorough and accurate information. I think Dan, you'd mentioned.
Yeah, so this is all about, we have agenda items, and I guess one of the examples tonight was a great one. If, we needed to have, say, input from the safety officers, of the town, it should not have been on the agenda. We should have had that information. So it's, if we're missing things and we're bringing people in before us, it's just making sure for all these agenda items that we're prepared. We have all if there's a financial impact to the town, we're not asking at the meeting and saying, oh, we don't have that, we have to go find the assessor and we'll have to do that at another meeting. It's just knowing ahead of time that what are the financial implications? What are the bylaw implications or state law implications? Do we make sure that we've got everything set? Are we ready to make this decision tonight? Is it thorough and is everything accurate so we can make that decision instead of always getting into a discussion and saying, oops, we got to postpone it. I know that's hard to do sometimes, but it's just taking lessons learned from the meetings and saying, okay, how could we have made this better so that it's going to accommodate the people that are coming before us, so next time we know to do it different, if it's a checklist or something like that. So, when we have these incidences that happen, it's learning from that and making sure we put something in place. And you mentioned a good thing. You said we should have had signatures and, ahead of time. And I've also seen where, like I said, if somebody comes before us for a license to use a race or something, we always have letters from the safety officials saying that, yes, we've reviewed this, we approve this. So we're not asking the question, have they reviewed this, or forget it. That'd be the worst. We take a vote and then somebody says, well, why'd you do that? You didn't ask us, So that's what I mean by thorough, accurate information on all the agenda items and what we have to decide on so that we're making the best decisions we can make.
Yeah, I agree. Tonight, we should ask the public safety to sign off on it. If they had an issue, they should come see. We should put it on the agenda until that's resolved.
Right.
And again, I think most of the time these things is resolved quite easily. It's usually one sit-down meeting, kind of face-to-face, and you hash it out, and you can all move forward. But it should have been done before it was ever put on the agenda.
Yeah, but in your defense, you weren't here during the whole, we over the last couple of years, we've had a lot of discussions in this room and a lot of residents in this room speaking to us about King Richard's Fair, but you weren't here for those discussions, so that's...
Yeah, no, I understand, but there are times when changes can be made.
Okay.
But
do we want to rank these tonight, or do we want to go on to our other ones?
I mean, let's.
I think we should rank them.
Okay.
I definitely think that we should rank them. I only, not that I want to put this thing off to another week. Do people want to rank them, submit them to I guess, Elaine and our next meeting, have the rankings?
Well, what I would suggest is that, and we've done this before when we've had different things in here that we needed to vote on, if the answer is, if we have these 5 items, we could simply call off and you could record in the meetings, and that would give us for instance, my number 1 item could be a 5. My number 2 item could be a 4. And whichever one gets the most points, well, that's the most important one.
Okay.
Whichever one gets the most second, that's the second most one, and down on down.
So what's the reason to rank them? And the only reason I'm asking that is we have basically 5 goals
Yep.
that we want to have done by April. I think all 5 are attainable. If we rank it, does that mean he should work on number 1 first, number 2 second, number 3 third?
I think what it does is it gives the town administrator guidance on what's most important to the board.
Right.
I think that's,
So for example, the newsletter
what it does.
communication, that's important, but it may not be more important than making sure we spend all our opera money and we have a good plan in place
Yeah.
for the, the next fiscal year where we got to get our budget, instead the budget and the opera mining are probably above the newsletter or even though we want that and we
Sure.
want
No,
to
I-
promote
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So that might
Yeah.
be the reason to rank.
yeah,
to
that's
say-
all. That's my only thought, is
Okay.
it gives the town administrator guidance on what's clearly a goal of the entire board. That's all. And,
mean-
or what our priority is for the town administrator. That's all.
I want to propose that probably ARPA, North Carver Water District, and the finance are the top 3.
Everyone knows what's going to get
We
5
know
points
those
from
are the
me,
top
so
3.
there's not going to be.
The others are important to have, accurate information in the newsletter, so I would probably propose that, the ARPA, the North Carver Water District, and the finance budget process are the top 3. I don't know whether we want to separate those out into the top 1. Those are probably at the top of the list, I think, and we all agree because we have so much discussion about those having to be solved.
So, are we in agreement?
No, I think we are.
All right. And then I would probably say the information to me is more important to good decision-making than it kind of goes. I mean, having important issues of the town too, but I would rank personally that the decision-making process and having all the right information is ahead of the newsletter communication, I mean, personally to me, but if you guys agree.
I would think so, because like you said tonight, having the select board is going to need to make these decisions, every 2 weeks. So that's going to take a higher priority then.
Well, do we want to go with the point thing, or do we just want to go around and tell the town administrator what's most important to each one of us? How would you prefer to do it?
There's not that much of a big list here. Why don't we just do that? We'll start with, tell the town administrator what's the most important.
You want us to rank
option.
them personally?
Yeah.
This is my top 1 through 5?
Yep.
Okay. Let's see. I think because the opera is more urgent, to me, that is at the top of the list because we don't want to leave money on the table and the deadline's coming fast, so I would make that one number 1. I think the North Carver Water District is the next most urgent thing to me because there's just so much going on there and so many issues that I think we need to get a handle on that. My next one would be the budget process, which we already have set up a meeting for, that we're working, so that's good. So that would be next to me. Then the board decision-making, thorough information would be my 4th, and then the communication, residents informed would be my 5th.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would, for me, I hate to do this, but I think the ARPA and the North Carver Water District would be a tie for me. I'll give them each 4.5 because I can't separate the two. And then I think I would agree with Mr. Ryan on the rest, the budget, decision-making, and some type of communications, whether it's a newsletter or what have you.
Okay. Mr. Hoffman?
I'm going to do something different. I'm going to go 1, 1A, and 1B, because I think 3 are equally as important. The ARPA funds, the North Carver Water District, and the budget.
That's what I originally said. That was my first comment, then you guys said separate it.
And the only reason I want to put the 3 of them together is I understand why we want to break them up, but the budget is very important.
Yep.
And that's something that we can't put off. Last year, we thought we had a timeline set up, and it wasn't met.
Didn't happen,
and it got, people upset. So, I don't think that's any more or less important than ARPA, because ARPA backs up against the wall. We have till September 30th.
Right.
So I don't want to put that down or up. And of course, North Carver Water District is an ongoing, if I had to go, that could probably be 2 instead of 1B, just because that, you personally can't do a lot with that. You're working with another group, but still, it's important to be involved in that group from now till, till it works out. So I don't mean to throw that off a little bit, but I just think the three of those are pretty, all as important in my point of view. And then the providing thorough and accurate information, and then as much as I want to see that newsletter next week, we can
Somewhat the same page. I think opera I have as number one, because that can pretty much be done within the next month, and then it's
Done.
Caring and feeding. I think I've got the budget process is 2, because that's something that I would say needs to be reviewed weekly based on our past experience. That needs to be something to really make sure deadlines are getting met. North Carver Water I have as 3, because it's important, but you'll do what you can, and then you'll wait, for feedback and decisions being made by someone else. So I'm putting that as a 3. Good select board decisions as a 4, and newsletter as a 5.
Yeah, I will say, the North Carver Water District is probably the one that I have the least amount of control over. But certainly working with the board and giving them good information too, just like, giving the select board good information. They certainly need it. They're all getting up to speed on it.
Sure.
I know Eric and Doug, they have some background to it, but they're still getting on board with it. All the different nuances of running any government program, working with the town of Middleborough. There's a lot of new things for them to be working on, so feeding them that information is something I can be working with on them too. I think it is important for me to be there. I think Mark said the last time, right? Having the town administrator at those meetings is probably a good thing for the town.
Yeah, and then I also think promoting us too, like if we need to meet with them and scheduling that, whatever we can do to help move this along and come up with a solution, we need to do that. So
I think it's important for them to, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. I think it's important for them to know that we support a solution and that we're interested in working to find a solution. And that's all. Clear. Listen, the North Carver Water District is in charge of the North Carver Water District, not the select board. But I think to what the extent we can, we need to be supportive and know, because it's an issue and it has to be resolved.
So my comment was more like, we're here. If they want to come before us and we want to have joint meetings and we can help them in any way, we're here to help. And by you participating will also help to keep the information flowing back to us.
And I don't think there's a third scenario, either make it work or decommission. I mean, that's just...
Yeah, that's just, right, that's, I think it's decision time, right?
I wouldn't want them to say, okay, we want to go on these 4 different pathways, and you've got these 2, then we've got a problem.
No. I think it's important too for them to know that we are behind them. I think in the past, that group's felt as though they've been on an island with no support or just, And I'll be honest, I went for the first time to visit the North Carver Water District on Saturday. I'd never been there before. So I took the tour, and I think they need to know that we're behind them. If they do have issues, if they do have concerns, that they can come to the select board. But again, through the town administrator.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I wonder if I could suggest that through you to the town administrator, maybe on a monthly basis, you just give us a brief synopsis of where we stand with these things. There might be no update for a month, but just since we pretty much agreed on all these goals, almost everybody had the same ranking, that you sort of could give us a monthly update on where these things are, if you could.
All right, so now we've got select board goals.
Oh boy, 10 of these.
Got 10 of them, yep. I think that coming up with a capital plan, it kind of goes hand in hand with the budget process. So it would be good to have a plan together, and I think the finance director has already started on things like that with regards to, how do we fund capital programs? So that's something that I'm looking at this again more as what's realistic to have a plan together by April when you get reviewed versus what is a 2-year, 3-year, by the end of your contract is hopefully we've got it resolved.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the capital plan, is that more of the capital for the number 1 goal?
Well, what it is you have 2 ways of looking at capital. Either you're going to hope there's free cash at the end of the year, and if there is, say it's $1 million, that's how you're going to fund capital. And
Or borrow.
or anything, yeah, borrow, except for it goes, if you're gonna put anything towards other items such as OPEB or anything like that, you're just using free cash. And if there's, to our benefit, there's $2 million, great. But if it's 200,000 or 300,000, you're gonna turn around and say there's no capital. No, we can't buy any buses, we can't buy any.
But isn't that more, my question more was, isn't that capital outlay first, then comes to us?
Well, they identify the plan.
Yeah.
Pretty much what they want to buy. I mean, the original capital outlay was coordinating, when do we buy buses, when do we buy, fire equipment and all that stuff. But as far as a long-term strategy, we need to help out. Like, for example, if we decide pilot funds are here, I'll just throw that out. We say 20% of pilot funds are going to go to capital projects. That's not free cash. And so we come up with a long-term plan for funding this stuff with dedicated money. Like, what ideas? I mean, you can borrow, you can use free cash, you can use one-time revenue like pilot money. So just looking at all those and deciding what's our best avenue for funding the capital plan that they're going to present to us. They're going to just come back and say, hey, we want these items, but then we're going to, hopefully, finance committee and everybody's going to have a plan that says, well, here's how you fund those things over time.
Gotcha.
Here's where the money comes from.
All right, number 2, succession planning. That's just making sure that, there were challenges in the past, mainly because of the transition with our previous finance director, that if someone leaves, we don't drop a beat. If someone goes on vacation, we get the information that needs to get done.
Yep.
So I don't think that's, I don't know how long that would take, or I don't think that's something, because you're talking about putting together training plans, licenses, if people need to go and get their licenses and things like that. I just think that's something that, before your term is up, that we have a strong succession plan.
So you mentioned something that we said at the last meeting too. So it's not just, a succession planning is usually if somebody leaves, typically, so you want to make sure that you have a backup that can step in and continue to operate. But the very good point that we talked at the last meeting was that if, say the finance director goes on vacation for 2 weeks and then we need something and there's nobody that can help us out. So we need to understand key things that person does and make sure somebody's trained to be able to run reports, for example, or get us the information where we're just told, sorry, you got to wait till that person comes back in 2 weeks, and then we're like, oh.
Some type of cross-training.
Some kind of cross-training. So that's the word. I'd like to add cross-training into this so that we are cross-training people to be able to do things that are needed.
Looking at the feasibility of renovating the old police station to a space that either the Recreation Department or Council on Aging can utilize.
Yeah.
Was that, whose recommendation was that?
3 and 4 are mine.
Oh, yeah, but they're the same thing? Wait a minute.
Well, no, one's for the old.
It's just a dupe.
Just the facility.
One half of the building, the other half of the building.
Yeah, and the reason I brought that up is I know in the past we've talked about doing something with that, but now it's been a few years, and the longer we wait, the more maintenance we're going to have to do on those buildings. And
I think we kind of talked about knocking them down and putting something
well,
there.
exactly like the old police station. Do we just knock it down and then rebuild?
But that's part of looking into it. Maybe that's the decision.
Exactly. But I know we've talked about doing this, and I don't recall any discussions. So I don't know what it takes to initiate that, or who we have to get involved with. But I would just like to see that, especially where Recreation could use a building, Council on Aging can use an updated building.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can come up with something.
So one thing I wanted to add to that, though, is we had deemed with those buildings were unusable. That's why we built a new fire station and a new police station. And so I want to be very careful that, the maintenance costs, there were issues with the roof leaking and all kinds of problems that they said were insurmountable over there. So that's why we decided to build 2 new beautiful facilities. So we really need to make sure that, if there's,
100%.
we're not throwing money, into something bad. If the solution is to knock them down and build a future, Council on Aging, then maybe we look at something like that. But I agree, we should first get an assessment from the chiefs that say, okay, what were the known problems here? Why did you vacate it? And then maybe look at what our options are.
But I think some of the issues with those buildings wasn't so much that they were in poor shape, they may have been, but they also they didn't fit the needs of a modern facility. They just weren't modern. Right. I remember being in the police station. If I ever escaped, I don't think I could find my way out of there. It was a maze. I'd probably still be in there. You'd have to come looking for me. So they were just older buildings that weren't built in a modern way. I think that's all. And just one thing to remember about, I think, the old fire station is during the winter months, that's where we store, that's where we keep the GATRA buses.
Yeah.
So,
And as far as from a standpoint of again, April, we did set aside funds via capital outlay for a study to be done.
Yeah, feasibility study.
So that's something
Yeah.
that, in theory, I don't know unless you're into hiccups or problems, that's something that may or may not be planned out
Yeah.
by April.
Yeah. I guess the only thing I'd say about these two is, I've heard some discussion about EMS, if they could, moving into the old fire police station. I just see this as recreation or council on aging, just to make sure the board's open if it were EMS, just to. So,
Yeah.
just, it's a little late in the game, and I realize that, but when I look at Mr. Hoffman's two items here, and they brought something to my attention that I think maybe is not going to be a goal, but maybe something we should look into, or at least ask the town administrator to look into. A number of people have brought up to me some of the issues down at the Council on Aging with parking and the new pickleball courts and the conservation property on the side. And I think at some point we have to work on an overall plan for that area, because the time is going to come when those pickleball courts are going to be built and people are going to be playing pickleball, and people are going to want to use the Council on Aging, and you may have a few people that want to park to walk on that conservation property, and there has to be an overall parking plan, I think, or some plan for that area. Otherwise, we're going to have a problem, because people are going to show up for lunch at the COA at 11 o'clock, and they're not going to be able to park because you're going to have people using the pickleball court. So it's off topic, and I apologize for that. I just thought it would be worthwhile bringing up, that's all.
So you just brought up a good point when you said that EMS wants to move in. So prior to building the police station and the fire station, we had done a town building study committee, if you remember, and we had a group go around to every building in town and assess its, where it was at, what's the state of those buildings. And then now you have the whole picture of who needs what, and then that might feed into a decision here, because if we suddenly just said, okay, let's do this one thing for this one group, we might be missing that there's a bigger need there. So I really think, looking at the state of the buildings in town, potentially a quick look at that might be a good goal here that says, what are the state of our buildings and that everybody uses, and what can we do for planning? So maybe we combine the goal into more of an assessment or an update of the old town building study committee report that had done that and looked at all the buildings, and just simply say, here's what EMS needs, here's the high school, middle school, that was in that plan too. What's the state of that building? Because somehow we have to address these things, and as part of financial planning in the long term, this goes back to why we had created the Capital Building Stabilization Fund originally, because we were going to have a mechanism by which we could address any building needs, because they'll never get covered. Once budgets start to take money and these buildings deteriorate, then you have a problem, because you can't come up with the funding. And that's why we had put the Capital Building Stabilization Fund, had direct funding going into that, and that's how we're able to get the police and the fire station within the levy limit. So we really should do another look at all the buildings, just a quick, some kind of an assessment, and put that into a plan of what are we doing over the next 5 to 10 years with all of these buildings.
Well, I think the funding, though, that was approved at capital outlay
Was just for that building.
wasn't to focus on all town buildings. It was just to focus on, I think,
I think it was
police, fire,
feasibility study for.
yeah, and council on aging, I think.
Okay.
I think that was included as well.
But the building, the other report that was done was just going to the buildings and
Yeah.
asking and looking.
Sure.
And, you could use operations or
That could
something
be
to
operations,
say,
yeah, exactly.
let's come up with a report of, that we don't need to spend a lot of money. We could probably hopefully do that within our own departments and get an assessment of where we're at.
All right, so that was 3 and 4 kind of combined. Then work with the town planner and planning board to make decisions regarding the MPD. I mean, do we have a dupe on here from a standpoint?
That's mine, and I think we already discussed that
Yeah.
when we just talked about the town administrator goals as well. I just,
So take this one off.
No, we're leaving this
Well,
one on because we
yeah.
removed the town administrator one.
yeah.
Do what you want me to?
Yeah, I think.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So we're going to leave this one on.
All right,
We already started
and we
this.
killed that one.
Yep.
Right, all right. I don't know if this should be combined. Working collaboratively with leaders of school committee, finance committee, capital outlay committee, develop a long-term budget strategy to reflect anticipated revenue streams, capital project commitments, and additional operating costs associated with building projects, programs, et cetera.
Yeah, that's mine too.
Does that kind of
And,
roll into, or could it be part of the whole four, which is work with the finance director, step by step by
I
step?
think it is. I think a lot of us are on the same page. I will, there was a time several years ago when we used to have occasional, I don't think there were any set schedule, joint meetings with the school committee, just to sort of talk about budget items and see where we were, and it might not be the worst idea to have those occasionally, and maybe even invite the finance committee into those meetings, just to have a general discussion. I'll leave that to the town administrator, to what he thinks might be advantageous and might not be, but I just think it's a good idea sometimes to get everybody together and see where we are, and get an overall picture of where we're going, that's all.
Okay. So, again, this is something that we would expect, a significant completion by April, because then really you have to do all these things in order to get the budget done.
Yeah.
And we've talked that, part of what we're doing with this year is a long-term forecast going out, not just, I think we talked about 5 years, but with the intent that that forecast goes out 10. And granted, between years 6 and 10, they're just wags at what we think may or may not happen. But it would be good to know, for instance, when something happens at the Route 44, or even with this battery park, when does the dollar value start hitting the town, and putting that out so we can plan for that. 7, health and safety of Carver residents includes aquifer protection and clean drinking water. All in favor of it, but I'm not sure if that's a 3-year plan. I'm not sure how we get started on that.
So I think maybe the first thing would be, periodically, people come before the board here to address issues with the aquifer or the water and all that. So maybe just a state of where we are and our risks, and, what policies do we have? So it sounds like it could just be a report that says, well, what is the state of, how are we doing in these things? Where are our risks? And maybe working with Serpent or something, sometimes they have resources to be able to, there's been studies done in the past, but I think part of this is really saying that, the citizens care about the aquifer, we care about the aquifer, we drink the water, and let's make sure, periodically things come before the board saying that there are issues. And so just understanding and being on top of what those are and letting us know, what's out there, what could impact us, it's, you don't want to be surprised at meetings when people come before and say, hey, there's this big issue, and we don't know about it. So we want to just do a report and say, well, what is the state of the system now? How are we doing? Where might we make improvements? So it's kind of maybe just a preliminary getting you up to speed to understand, what do we have here, and how are we making sure it's protected and everything, and then just give us a synopsis.
Mr. Chairman, through you to the town administrator, Mr. Cannon, are you aware of any state agencies or anything like that monitor aquifers and things like that? I mean, I know they monitor public drinking water thing, but is there anyone out there that monitors, private aquifers or things like that? Or?
I'm not aware of it, so I certainly haven't been involved with it in much detail. The only thing I could think of with this one, maybe I have to look to see what Serpent would offer to us. I know there are occasionally, people who want to preserve land, and there's always an environmental value to me to preserving land, right? If it's not developed, there's the potential for cleaner drinking water and, just a cleaner environment if the land is preserved, in general. That's the only thing I could think of with this one, but I'd have to look out there and to see what is available to us. I don't know if there's a aquifer.
I just didn't know. I didn't know if there might be some state agency that monitors those things or not, that's all.
Yeah, I don't know. I know this is the Buzzards Bay Coalition. I know they do a lot for Buzzards Bay, if you will. I'm not really sure I know where the aquifer line is here in Carver, but there might be somebody out there who's doing it. Again, I'm just not as aware of these groups.
Okay, thank you.
So I guess my question on that, so these are select board goals?
Yeah, they are select board goals, but I guess we have to work with the town, sometimes you have to work with the town administrator to help to get the information.
Yeah, I'm not sure that this might be a tough one for the select board to
That's why I was wondering, is this more of a,
I mean, the aquifer protection and things like that, sometimes that falls more on like the earth removal committee and Concom and things like that, I think, than it
Right.
does the select board.
right? That's why I was kind of wondering, is this more of a town administrator
We could move it
goal,
over.
or
if
is this
you-
a select board goal?
We could move it to the town administrator.
I'm not even sure the town administrator can do much. I really think it's more some of those other boards than it is the town administrator. He might have more control over it than we do, but
Well, I guess something like that, so let's say it is earth removal and it is Concom, that, could he be the liaison between those two and then just keep us updated? Because a lot of times you hear about earth removal, there are these, projects going on that are ruining the aquifer. Well, is
Right.
that accurate?
Yeah.
That's what I need, that's what I was looking for. with
Right,
this,
so is that
do we get
something
a
where the
report
town, the town administrator would do that, or do we, as a select board, ask an update from the earth removal committee, or, you know what I mean? That's, I think, the one thing that I like to do overall is just, what's the truth, what are the true facts, and because so much stuff is put out there, and I'm sure we all get stopped, whether it's texting or messaging or the supermarket. I just saw this on Facebook, and then it's not 100% accurate.
Right.
So what, I guess, and this is a huge issue, I mean, obviously, the aquifer is a big thing, we're all concerned about that, so how,
maybe that's something we need to think about a little bit.
Yeah.
Us, the town administrator, and see if we can come up with a way of coordinating something like that. That's probably a good idea. It's just a matter of how do you do it, that's all.
okay.
Okay.
Okay, and then item 8, management of taxes through business development, financial management, attracting businesses, help with tax rates, financial management, pay off debts. I crossed off capital building stabilization because we're kind of hitting it in the first one. Would anyone like to speak on this?
Not mine.
It's not mine.
I think it's sounding, I think this is more along the lines of all this stuff ties together.
Yeah.
So, we set tax rates every year, we manage the budgets, so, it's kind of looking at, and people have always said that if you're bringing in more business, of course, that's going to help with residential tax rates and things like that. So I don't know if this is like master planish type comments here, or, but we've talked about our financial policies and, paying debts off earlier. Does that benefit the town? And, maybe looking at the big picture, maybe it's part of the whole policy thing that we're in the middle of doing now, bringing this into it and making sure that we're planning the spending of the money properly to balance it so that we're minimizing taxes. So do we always look at it and say that when we make these decisions, how's it going to impact the tax? I mean, we're limited to 2.5 with some respect, but then sometimes you have to go for exclusions, which we're paying off right now. Is that going to hit us again? So when we go to do the high school, is it going to be all about, here we go again, we're doing another debt exclusion that we have to get through? Or could we have done something, which we did try, we're putting some pilot monies aside to minimize that? Will we be able to do another building? Then we just talked about council on aging building, we talked about the EMS building, so this stuff mounts up, and so where's all the planning and being able to minimize and not have to, raise taxes?
One thing that might help a little bit with this, I don't know, just a thought, is we always have that annual meeting with the assessors where we set the tax rate, and they come in and, we have the big split, we have the 1.45 split,
Yeah.
and they come in and they recommend a lower split, and then we discuss it, and then we vote on it. But that's always done in one meeting. Maybe it wouldn't be a terrible idea to have them come in maybe a couple of meetings before that,
Yeah.
and they could sort of talk about what they're thinking, and
Right.
we could just, without making any decisions, just sort of hear their thoughts, and
Right.
and that would give us some time to think about it a little bit too,
Yeah.
and then come back to that meeting where
Right.
we vote on the split, rather than just doing it all at one meeting where there's really not an opportunity to discuss it and think
Correct.
about the ramifications of the split.
When's that going to hit us again? Do we know when that comes up?
It's always...
What time frame?
Yeah. It's always, when is...
October.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it October?
Yeah, it's not for a while.
November.
All right.
But
I agree, because in the meeting last year, it's one of those, were we prepared to make that decision on the tax rate?
yeah,
And I didn't feel we were.
and we never hear anything from them until then.
Right,
So it might not be the worst, just to have them come in and say,
And I
this is what
agree.
we're thinking, and this is why, and
Right.
we, okay, and we ask a couple of questions, and it doesn't have to be a long meeting, just...
Right.
So it doesn't sound like 8's going to be done by April, so I think this is going to be something where it's improved upon and, piece by
Yeah.
piece,
But again, this is a select board.
Yeah.
Yep.
It is,
But-
which,
but-
True.
and I do
Are we
agree.
giving ourselves an April deadline as well?
If there's something on here that is, like, for instance, the capital plan, I would think would be done by April, even though it's a select board
But
goal.
I think 8 is one of those things that, it's always a select board goal. I mean,
Yeah.
we're always managing taxes and this type of thing. It's not just I mean, it's always a goal. That's just one of the things the select board does.
But to your point there, do we as a town, or do we have as a goal, have want to do two things? Reduce the split, and that we debated about that last year, and then we couldn't make a decision because we said, well, we got to spend more time on it. So what is the more time?
And we debated about it every year.
Exactly.
I mean, we debated about it
Then we
every-
say, well, we'd like to do it, but we don't have enough information. So I agree with you. Bringing them in ahead of time makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Maybe that helps with this goal because now we're getting time to think about it and see the impact of reducing it. Also, I'm sure citizens will always say, hey, if you can find ways to reduce taxes, we're all for it. So, sometimes we can, sometimes 2.5 is a struggle to make ends meet. But maybe there are strategies we can do to help in that respect, or not have to do debt exclusions would be the better part too, not have to raise taxes.
Okay, so 8's staying on.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm just trying to be aware of, like, the measurement that we're being fair to you from a standpoint, like,
And us.
it's an ongoing, it's us, it's an ongoing, piece. There's some progress, not finished, but there's some progress by the board and the TA and some of these issues.
I think I mentioned this as chair. I'm all for having a time frame and a deadline, but I do think the board should be higher end, goals. Some of these, again, even the health and safety of Carver residents. Again, that should always be a goal, right? That should always be listed on here. The same thing with the management of taxes. And there's nothing I hate more, I can tell you right now, than vacant properties, and certainly run-down vacant properties. I think that looks terrible for a town. So,
Sure.
we should always be cognizant of that and trying to help, refurbish any building we can in town that's been vacant for any amount of time.
Yeah.
And sometimes, again, they're not going to be done, within a time frame, within an April time frame, but we should always have it in the back of our mind.
I think you bring up a good point. I mean, these are we'll always have these in the back of our mind, but it's what tasks do we have to do? I mean, if vacant properties is an important thing, if we have a percentage of those, maybe our real goal is to reduce the percentage by 10, something like that. And that's a real goal. And that means you have to do something to make it happen. So each of these are important, but maybe when we pick our top 5, we have 5 members on the board. Maybe if we pick our top 5, we have a champion for each of those and say, you've got to identify some tasks that will help us to achieve something towards this goal, and we each own one of the top 5, and then maybe make some progress and come back to a future meeting and say, okay, we've identified these tasks that can be done to keep this goal moving, or to help us out.
I mean, I think clearly financial planning needs, in one way or the other, is a clear goal of this board, because they're on here several times. And
They are.
worded one way, worded another, but
Right.
they're on there.
They are.
And repeatedly, so.
Yeah. And we have been doing a lot to help
Yeah,
that.
yes, we
So
have.
this last year, I mean, I think we did, as a board, we did a lot to help to support that. And now with these meetings that we have going again and trying to get a handle on it, I think even though we had some issues, with the town administrator transition, the finance director, I mean, those were challenges, but we made it through. And at the end of the day, we got a balanced budget and we learned from it. So I think, to Mr. Townsend's point, we are continually focused on that, and we are taking action on that, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Okay, item 9, support and endorse an updated housing plan, master plan, open space, and recreation plan, all of which are currently out of date. So the town will once again be able to be eligible for state grant funds.
Is that Sarah, maybe?
I guess, and I think that, that we should have that be updated. I'm just saying that it's a select board, but then you would turn around and probably hand this off to the planner,
I think the
right?
town planner is working on that housing production plan right now, I
Yes.
believe,
Correct.
so.
I believe he's working on all 3 of these plans, actually.
Yep.
And this just says support and endorse it.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, and work preemptively with when opportunities to build affordable housing or to acquire important open space parcels occur, and to build some affordable housing and not squander those opportunities. I think that I'm trying to set you up for success, and I don't know. I'm looking at what's happened in the past.
Well, this is our goal, by the way.
I know.
So set
But
us up
I
for
don't,
success.
but is it, we being the board,
Yeah.
I look at it from the town planner's perspective. And what do we, as a group, want to push as our goal and objective to the TA. I'll go back to, again, that Ediville initiative. Clearly, there was a large 40B, potential 40B project that the board voted down. Okay, then it's not that. Then they were the one-off locations all over town, where we
Right.
started looking at tax title and whatever, but then when we started saying that was gonna take a $300,000 to $400,000 influx of cash, whether from us, whether it's CPA or anything else, the board voted no to that.
Right.
Majority anyways. So the question is, I guess is we need to send the TA off, and I guess us, we have to come to an agreement as what do we think the affordable housing plan might look like, correct?
Well, this is where I struggle too, sorry, this is where I struggle too, because I always want to know what are our options, you know? And we don't, you know, things come before the board, but they're like last minute, we have to make a decision tomorrow, it doesn't make any sense to us, and we vote it down, but how do we be more proactive?
Yeah, and I think some of this wording, like the end here and not squander those opportunities, well, those opportunities mean different things to different people, right? In fact, we had those 4 building lots on Route 58 down in South Carver. Some of us felt that was appropriate for affordable housing. Some of us felt that it wasn't the right location.
Correct.
So I think this is one of those things that means different things to different people. I think we all want to give opportunities for housing. It's just that, you know, the wording like not squander those opportunities. Well, one person might feel it's a great opportunity.
Right.
You might
Another
feel
not.
it's not a great opportunity,
Exactly.
and that's one of those things. We have lots of opportunities. Every time somebody wants to take land out of 61A, we have an opportunity to buy that land, whether we have the money, or we might have to call a special town meeting to ask for that money, or however we get the money. We always have that opportunity to buy that land. We just, some of us might feel it's a great opportunity, some don't. But I think this is a tough one to have as a select board goal. I think this is more of an individual member goal, and maybe sometimes you think it's like I said, one of us might think it's a great opportunity, one of us might think it's not a great opportunity.
It's not like we can go out and solicit these. You know what I mean? We just can't go to a certain property. It has to be, like you said, coming out of chapter. Or if, like the project down at the end of the street, you know, those type of things. So select board goal, although this is something I think we all want, it's not something that we can go out and get on our own. It's more of an opportunity that's presented to us, what we do with it then.
Yeah, and I think that's, yes, I mean, I think that's sometimes, it's hard to know what opportunity is going to come our way.
Right.
All we can do is just be, if one comes our way that we think is a good opportunity, then we have to be prepared to act on it.
And I think that's the point, is we weren't always prepared, because once the clock starts ticking, that's what ended up happening. And by the time it gets to us and we realize all the logistics, and I don't even understand all the logistics. So it's kind of like proactively getting yourself prepared to say, what do we need to do? So when the opportunity comes, we can execute. You know, when it comes before us and they say, well, you have to make a decision by next week. You know, it's like, well, wait a minute, we don't know all the facts. We can't make a decision.
And I'll be honest with you, the project down the end of the street at the end of 58, the way it was presented to me, I didn't think that there would be 3 buildable lots. There was 4 lots. My understanding from being told was that there's no way we could get 3 homes on there. Well, there are 3 homes going to be put up there. So
I think it was more the 12, they were looking at like 12 units or 12 residential units on those structures there with all the septic and the water. I think they had room to build 3 buildings, but it wasn't, we were looking more denser. You know, if I recall, it was a denser population of that site that we just didn't see it was feasible.
I think if there's one goal that could come out of this, and I hate to, Mr. Cannon, I hate to flip a select board goal to a town administrator goal, but maybe the goal would be to get the word out to the planning board and the town planner and everyone that's involved in giving us their opinion on whether we should purchase a property when it comes out of 61A. Could they all send us their opinion? Maybe the goal would be to get it to the select board as quickly as possible, because sometimes it seems like by the time they get here, we don't have a lot of time to act, and maybe we could sort of get the word out to them that, hey, when someone wants to take a property out of 61A, let's work to get it on an agenda or get their opinions as quickly as possible, so it comes to the board as quickly as possible, so that maybe instead of 15 days to act on it, we have 30 days, or I don't know what the time period would be, but get us the most time possible, so we don't necessarily have to make a decision the first time we see it.
Right.
And
Yeah, I agree with that, it's being prepared for when it does come available. And then I remembered, it's like, how are we going to pay for this? Who's
That's
going to
the
pay
first
for
question.
it?
That's
There's
right.
all these questions that came. What's the limitations? Is
Yep.
there water? Is there, all that stuff that came before us? We were asking those questions during the process, and it would be nice to know, to be prepared when 61A property comes available. How do we get quick answers on all that stuff before it comes to the board, so that we're ready the first night, with
But
all
just the fact that normally, if it's something that we were interested in doing, we
Yeah.
normally would have to call a special town meeting to ask for the money, because normally we don't have the money sitting
Exactly.
around. And
And how do you do
that means we have to have enough time to call the special town meeting and get it together and
Exactly.
everything. So that's, I think, like I said, I hate to flip it from a select board goal to a town administrator goal, but maybe that's something you could just get the word out to everyone involved.
That,
that, hey,
that would be doable. I was gonna say, Mr. Townsend, to your point, I believe those lots down in 58 was a $900,000 price tag, I believe, I think it was one of the questions you asked me, is do we have that kind of funding available,
Oh, yes, I remember. We were going to have to call a special
Right, you'd
town
have to-
meeting. There was no way around that.
Right, you'd have to call a special town meeting.
I think what I'm hearing is, as soon as someone turns around and files for the 61A, that we have an action plan that kicks in.
Exactly.
In order for us to
Yeah.
move, instead of someone coming to us with a P&S, we go out to the site, town planner hits, evaluate it, what can be done with this site, so we know exactly, we know more about the parcel than the people coming before us.
There should be a checklist that says, this is done, this is done, this is done, then when it comes to the board, we already have all the information.
That's right, and that gives us time. For instance, on that property, we asked for a site visit, and we all went down there and looked at it.
We did.
But you need to have time to do that.
Yeah.
So-
And also, not to interrupt.
Okay.
But you feel bad, I felt bad for the developer and the landowner, because they came to our meeting expecting us to reject it, to not want to buy it.
Right.
And they thought they were gonna move on with the project, then the meeting got delayed. We moved it forward and moved it forward, so you have to be fair to them as well. But you're right, we need to have as much information up front, being
As
proactive.
quickly as possible.
Right.
So, and again, I wish Sarah's here as well, because I just want to, only speaking for myself, is that when we look at an affordable opportunity, and I'm just going to throw out numbers, if it's going to cost us, the town, like $400,000 to create an affordable unit worth $200,000, I personally have a hard time with that. So, I think that we're on the right page with saying, hey, let's get the word out as soon as it happens. So we're looking at maybe 1 or 2, 3 different plans of what we can do with that property, and then the time with regards to when we could execute.
And back to the original point to what we were saying with that is that maybe 61A property isn't the best way of planning affordable housing. I was saying, what are the options that we have here? So, being more proactive and saying, say, in Carver, we want to build more affordable housing, what are our options? And not waiting for 61A stuff, because it seems like that hasn't been working out for us at all because of the timelines and the money and the cost. But what are our options? What do other towns do? What's the best way to do this for us, and how do we do this?
I think one of the things the town planner has talked about before, and some of this gets a little complicated, so don't take me at our word here, because I'm just trying to remember what he talked about, was sometimes there'll be a property, maybe it's a commercial development or something like that, that for some reason becomes empty, and I think you can take that and develop hopefully I'm going to use the correct term here, like a 40R or something like that, and that's a possibility. There's probably a lot of possibilities out there, and we need to be, again, probably need through the town administrator to make everybody aware that we're open to those possibilities. Just bring them to us as quickly as we can, so we have enough time to make an informed decision. That's all.
Okay.
All right, so what's our feeling on ranking these items?
Oh, man, all right.
I don't think we can really rank these.
No.
I don't.
I mean, we can.
I think
but-
clearly the financial thing is a priority for the board. We've said it in 3 or 4 different ways on here.
We've covered it in the first, first one. All right, so we'll leave
But I
this.
think it can be covered too. I think the town administrator has a role to play, but we also have a role to play in staying on top of this as a board and saying, okay, where is this information? I think we can, it's both of us
So you're
working together.
proposing that goal number 6 is our top priority? It sounds like that's the
Well, goal number 6 was my goal. So
Yes.
yes, I think that should be a top priority.
Yeah, I mean, all of
but-
us have been
But I
saying
think,
this.
we all, in one way, shape, or form,
We've
we
all
all...
said the same thing.
We all said, we all
So I would
said.
probably argue that yes, for right now, and because we want a good process and a good budget planning, that probably number 6 is the top of our list, and we are working on that, so that's a good thing, because we are meeting, we're trying to address that, so I guess I would propose that's number 1. Sound like everybody should
I like
be
that
mad.
proposal, so
Yeah.
I'll go
There you
along
go.
with it.
But I thought we just talked about not ranking.
Not ranking them.
Yeah, I just said that number 1 ties into here, which is ranked.
Yeah.
But if you don't rank them, then what the question is, what do we do here? I mean, it would be nice to at least know what the top 5 are and like go back to saying we're actually doing something on them. You know, I don't want this to sit for another year and we're back saying, well, yeah, we did a little bit, but I mean, if you don't pick them and take any action, they're just going to sit there for potentially for a
I
year.
think we could also maybe, like, just in 6 months, review this and have we done anything on these? If not,
Well, do we want to set an owner? That's where I was kind of going.
Yeah.
Would we like to give each of us you are the champion of this, and I know we all will probably work on it together, but do we want to have a champion that actually sets some action items here and shows progress?
Well,
Well,
go ahead.
I would just say, getting back to number 5 here, and I know members of the board may not agree with me that this is a select board item, but I would really like to have a meeting at some point, or at least have someone reach out to our public safety chiefs in our school and say, listen, if we build 250 units up in that, up wherever they propose the MBTA housing for, we don't know where it's going to be, but wherever they propose it for, if you add 250 units there, what does that do to the police department? What do you need?
Yeah.
What does that do to the fire department? How many extra calls is that for EMS? Because
Right.
that's a budget number that we can define that number.
Right.
And what does it mean? How many extra kids is that for the school? And that can give us, so again, we don't necessarily make the zoning, but we do the budget. And that's something we need to be prepared for as a board, because if we enact this and they build it, then where's that money going to come from? Because the housing is not going to be
True.
tax positive. It's going to be tax negative.
I mean,
So
yeah, it is true. I mean, I was very concerned, but then Mr. Bott made a interesting comment saying that Carver is probably not the most attractive place, even if we zone property, for somebody who's putting an investment forward to build a unit that would have 250, because they're not going to make any money, and we're
Maybe
not in a
not.
good location
Maybe
to
not
be
today,
able to do that.
but maybe 5 years from now, they figure
Yeah.
out a way to put that public water supply in, or that septic system in a much more economical way.
Or grant funding becomes available to the builder, and that allows them to do it for half the cost.
That's right, and then where are we? So that's, like I said, I'm not saying I'm for it or against it, I'm just saying I'd really like to hear from some of those other departments about what what would happen, because eventually this is gonna come to town meeting.
Right.
And the town meeting, I think, is gonna look to the select board to give them some guidance on how to vote, and we wouldn't be able to give them that guidance unless we know those numbers.
And I think what's useful about what you're saying, but maybe for a different reason, is we've never really looked at the growth of Carver. How have we been growing over the last 5 to 10 years? And, what are the projections, and how are we keeping up with, police, fire, all the public safety, the schools? So what is our capacity? And, independent of this, somebody could come along and, I don't know if there's a large piece of property in Carver that somebody could sell. I know there's property, say hypothetically, Sampson's Pond. Somebody decides, I'm going to just sell, a ton of property there, make a lot of money, and then we'll just build all these houses. So they may not have to be affordable. It's just in general is that we don't really have a understanding. It's sounding master planish to me, but we don't really have an understanding of our capacity. So it's like for every resident, for every 100 or 200 residents, we need an extra police officer, for example, or we need, another school. I mean, where are we with the school? Are we full capacity now, and we'd have to build, if one more resident came into town, we have to build a new elementary school? I don't know, so so maybe that's not a bad part of the goal, just to lump it together to say, well, what is our capacity of the town growing forward to be able to expand, and the impact to all the services, the school and everything. And it doesn't have to be affordable housing, but it's just in general as we grow. We did go through through a growth spurt once. I mean, I think we had a period where all of a sudden we ramped up in the past to like 11,000. It shot up and then it kind of stabilized. But I haven't seen the trends lately of where we're at.
But when we had that growth, I'm sorry, just one point, when we had that growth spurt, remember that's when we passed the override to build a new high school.
Yes.
For the middle high school. And things like, so it did have, we had that growth spurt, and that had a substantial financial impact on the town.
Right.
And that's why I keep going back to this, because that could have a substantial financial impact on the town.
Yes,
And I
I
just
agree.
think we need to know what it is.
Yeah. So what's the
Okay.
Okay.
So, and again, I look at these as, again, these are select board goals, all right, that the TA will take lead with and disseminate amongst all his direct reports, right? So I think we expect these to be worked on over the next year. I'm not sure if we want to rank the top 3, fine, that are most important to us, but like, I guess I don't want to add another goal to the administrative goals, but one of the things that I think you have to do it, no matter what, is you're going to take these goals and the select board goals, whatever we agree to, now you're going to lay them out there, and then you're going to put your direct report underneath and say, okay, succession planning, 1, 2, 3, 4, that's your goal for the next year. Then you go into the housing planning, that goes under the town planner or planning board. And so we really need to make sure that there are goals and objectives for all your direct reports that tie into the town administrative objectives and the select board objectives. So I guess I'm throwing it out there. Should that be an objective to make sure that you have goals and objectives for all your direct reports, or is this something you're going to do no matter what?
Well, I look at them all separately. But no, I think you're absolutely right there. You know, I'll be, it's like right now, most of the things are really staff, right? I'll be working with staff to make sure I move forward with all of them. So it'll be me working with staff. I think that's the way it should be too, honestly, you know. I shouldn't, I shouldn't be in working in isolation. I've heard of town administrators who have their door closed, many hours of the day. And that's just not the right way to be. You gotta interact with your staff. You have to be working with your staff. You have to know where the hindrances are too. Especially something on the succession planning. I know one of the easiest things, you look for, if a town has enough resources, you really want, and usually they're larger towns, but you'll have a department head, then you have an assistant, or whatever that department is, and that'll be one of the things I'll tell you right now, I don't have, certainly in my mind, which departments right now have assistants, which departments don't have assistants, So that'd be something I'd look at, because, an assistant is somebody who should be able to step in, whether that, if the department head moves on, or if they're on vacation, the assistant department head should be able to step into that role, so, those are the kinds of things I'd be looking to see.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, I just think it's important that when we set these goals, they're goals that we can act, if they're select board goals, they have to be a goal that we can actually do.
Sure.
And just number 2, the succession planning, we can't do that.
No.
We can support the town administrator in doing it, but
Right.
we can't do it. The
Right.
town administrator has to do that, because he's in charge of staff. Like, I hate to
Right.
go back to one of my things, but number 5, we can do that. We can have a meeting in here, and we can bring all those people in, and we can say to them, what would be the impact in your budget? And they can tell us. We can do that. I'm sure there's other things on here, but we can't do number 2. We can, as far as number 3, I guess we can put together a committee. We could somehow have an ad hoc committee or something to do that.
I guess to that point, as you said, money was allocated at town meeting. Well, who's managing that? Who owns that? Okay, so we put money aside. I'm trying to remember the article, but who actually owns the spending of that money and the management of that whole process? Who was the owner of that?
It's operations and maintenance.
Is it?
Yes.
That's what
Okay.
we talked about when we allocated the money. We go to.
So the operations and maintenance are going to take care of these.
Yes.
Right.
And it's my job to work with him to make sure
Okay.
we're following the correct procurement procedures, and
So-
make sure that project is on track, and that's what it comes down to,
So maybe to Mark's point, is our goal to make sure you do it?
Yeah, well, that's what it is, right? Again,
So I do have the same concern here, is I'd like to see what is the deliverable out of this? You know, what are we looking for? What's done? You know, we say they meet a couple of things in these goals, so look into the feasibility. Well, what's got to come out of that? I mean, are we going to see a plan? Are we going to see it completed? Or, you know, what?
Well, I would say the completion of the feasibility study. That'd
Okay.
be my, end objective.
Okay.
And I would think that'd be realistic. I'm always probably too optimistic about this, but I wouldn't think it would take that long to get it done. I mean, 3 months maybe. How long is it going to take them?
Yeah, and I think, I don't know, this might be, Mr. Cannon, might be more of a question for you, because I don't know, but when you have a feasibility study to look into renovating something, don't you have to have an idea of what you want to renovate it to be before you have the study? Like, personally, I don't think the old fire station is a good location. It would be a good location, but I'm not sure that space will work for the Council on Aging. There's no kitchen in there. It's very cut up. It's not, I just don't know how that would work for a Council on Aging. Might work very well for the Recreation Department, but I'm just wondered, when you have a feasibility study, do you have to know what you want to make it before you have the study?
So on the feasibility study, it was specifically to look at the old fire and police building as EMS headquarters.
Okay.
And then you'd have a vacant EMS building, what you could do with that. It really didn't get into what kind of, but that's specifically for the police and fire. So, like I say, very defined,
Okay.
and then flat out whether or not it works or not. That's the thing you have to look at.
Oh.
And again, for a modern facility, just like you were talking about, you look at these modern police stations, you look at the modern fire stations, they're worlds apart from what we had in the past.
Right.
All right, so, getting back to 1 and 2, are we talking about moving, say, 2 over to the town administrator goal, if it's not a select board goal?
I think that sounds like a good proposal. I mean, it goes back to we as a board need to have this done. So just, having whatever you need from us, but having, the backup of cross-training and all that stuff, somebody has to identify what that really means, and it's probably not us. I mean, but making sure there is a plan in place is probably our goal, to say we want that succession plan done. And we'll do whatever you need to help us, to help you to do that.
So we'll move that over to the TA.
It sounds like it is more of a,
Okay.
Mr. Townsend said, it's a TA.
I just don't know how we could
Do
here
anything
accomplish
there.
it, that's all.
Other than request that it gets done.
Right.
Yeah.
So that is a TA goal, which we'd have to re-rank with the other TA goals. But let's just move it for now.
Well, my top 2 goals are going to remain 5 and 6. No, I know that.
Okay.
I think
we
they.
all
No, I meant, I'm sorry,
We all
we
agree
already ranked the TA
Yeah.
goals, and now we're moving one over. That was
We
my
all
point.
agree the newsletter can stay at the bottom.
We'll just put suggestion just before the newsletter.
Yes.
No, the newsletter, we already, that was on the town administrator goals. We're on the town select board
No,
goals
he's
now.
joking about the rankings.
Okay,
Saying that
all right.
If we move the succession plan, it's going to go right above the newsletter.
Right above the newsletter.
Oh, okay.
Not really a joke.
And then the feasibility study.
Just don't move it ahead of my ARPA funds, okay? Just,
So the same with the feasibility study. It needs to be done. It's been commissioned by town meeting, and Operations owns it, so it sounds like having a feasibility study done for the existing building is really one goal, and it probably needs to be moved over to...
But when someone comes up with that feasibility, wouldn't they be coming to the select board in order to present it? So
I think so.
So it
Yeah.
kind of is a select board goal.
Yeah, in some respect, all the TA goals are our responsibility
Yeah,
for making sure they get done.
I consider these to be one and the same in most cases.
clearly, if
Okay.
somebody comes back to us and says, hey, that building is going to make a great EMS building or a great recreation building or whatever it is, that doesn't mean there's money for it. We're going to have to come up with a plan to fund it and
Right.
get that done. So that's
Right.
clearly going to have to be done.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
Certainly, there's going to be a completion of the feasibility study, but it's really the next step.
Right.
Is where it's really going to, because
Right.
no matter what happens, there's going to be funding. So it has to be. It's
Right.
going to be.
I mean, the biggest thing with both those buildings, it's just they've been left for so long. Are they structurally sound?
What's the
to
condition?
put anything in
I
there?
agree.
Yeah.
Or that they have to be torn down?
That's the
I've
key
heard all
thing.
different stories from different people you talk to.
I agree with you. So that's a real key thing, is
Right.
what is the state of those buildings should be the top thing that's
Right.
defined. And if we say they're usable or not usable, that's going to answer the question right away.
Yeah.
And then what purposes could they be used
Right.
for
That's
if
right.
they are feasible? I mean, if if we can use them.
Well,
All right.
maybe what we should do is just go around the room and each identify like our top 3 things or something like that. Maybe that would be a good way to start. Just to,
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, it seems like we're talking around here, but we're not
Yeah,
getting
On the top
anywhere.
3.
just for some guidance.
Yeah, so, I mean, I'll start. My top 3 are gonna be number 5, number 6, in that order, and, you know, the third one, you know, I honestly don't know what the third one would be. I guess number 3 and 4 together. I sort of look at those as
One
a
thing.
combined thing, yeah. So I guess 5, 6, and 3/4
Well,
would be.
would 3 and 4 already be, it's already being done through the allocation, which I didn't.
Well,
when I
but then
said-
they're gonna bring it back to us.
Right.
And we're gonna have to try to provide some funding for whatever. So I guess that, what I would look at as our goal is not so much to,
Yeah, because I was the one that submitted those two, and the main reason I put that on was I just didn't think of feasibility was even in the plans. I didn't realize that it was already being allocated.
that's, okay. Well, all right, you know what? I'm gonna change that. I'm gonna go with 5, 6, and 8.
Okay.
Those are my 3, in that order.
Want me to go next?
Sure, go ahead.
All right, I think I'll pick number 6 as my top, and we are working on that. And in spirit of that, you know, I think they're related, would be number 8 and then number 1. I mean, to me, they're all tied together, and if we're going to look at the whole picture, we should do those.
So number 6, you said that's being worked on now. Is there, I know the committee that,
Yeah, we have a committee, we're looking at the policy first, and I'm assuming that's going to continue, you know, to, you know,
Is that what
advise the town administrator on the policy.
is that what the school committee, the FinCom, and capital outlay, they all included?
Yes,
So again, if that's already being done,
it's a
should they?
goal.
Right.
Yeah, that's what's good about it. I mean, it's a goal, and we're already
And you're already
working
working on it.
But again, what I'm talking about when I mentioned this is not so much that, it's meeting, entire groups meeting in a joint meeting.
Okay.
And discussing where we're at and where we're going. And working collaboratively to just, like I said, just, I don't want to wait until March to find out, hey, there's problems over here and there's a problem over. I think if we meet occasionally together, we know where the school's at, you know, we know where everyone's at, and it's important to.
You mean, once we get into the budget process, you know, not that...
I mean, even before
right
the
now-
budget process.
Well,
I
right
mean-
now, what's going on is, you know, there are members of the finance committee and the school committee that are working to advise the town administrator on that old policy that we had. and-
I mean beyond
it's-
policies, I just mean sort of where they're at, and what they think they're gonna need, what we think we're gonna need, and, you know, I said, I'm not talking about any
Yeah.
schedule per se, I'm just talking
Okay.
about occasional meetings together, that's all.
Okay. That's fine.
I mean,
All right.
that used to happen, and
Yeah.
it-
So I did 6, 8, and 1 is my 3.
Okay, Mr. Hoffman?
6, I think, is my number 1. The MBTA, now that has to be done, right? So that's already being worked on.
I didn't pick that because Mr. Bott's kind of
Yeah.
leading that, and that's going to
Yeah.
all drive to...
Well, that's what I'm getting at, is it's already being in the process, it's already started, so.
And we're going to have town meeting articles, I assume, that are
but
going to
we are not gonna
it.
know what those costs are to the town.
We are, and that
Unless
should be
we,
done. I agree. And
unless we have people in here to tell us,
Yep.
so.
that should be part of the process, I would hope. So what else do you have?
Do you want me to go?
No, he's still...
Do you want time?
No,
Okay.
So number 9, that's updating the master plan, the housing production plan master plan. It's already basically being done by the town planner now.
He's working on the housing production plan, yes.
So that's something that we'll check in with, but it's not,
Yep. We don't have direct action probably, other than supporting him.
so again, I'm trying to struggle with, so these things that are already being done, even though they're being done, they're still a priority to us. So in
They
other
are.
words, like if I'm strong about this master plan, open space rec plan, even though we're not directly involved in that, it's still a priority, and I want to see that done this year type thing.
So the question with that, that's what I struggle with. What would you do then? What would we as a board and what would you do for action items to make that, other than, having periodic meetings and getting updates and
Right,
supporting
just
it?
basically to make sure it gets done this fiscal, this
Okay.
year. That would be the goal.
So we'll twist his arm and,
Well, I mean, a lot of times, just by asking, hey, what's an update? Because so many things are out there, and unless we ask for updates through the TA or to ask them directly,
this kind of goes back to the newsletter. Well, was that
Great
whole
idea, that
it was-
newsletter.
It was kind of the idea that we have all this open stuff, so how do we get periodic status on these things? Like,
Right,
where is it at?
But I
what's
think a lot of
happening
times,
next?
if people know there aren't eyes on them, they're not going to push that as much.
I
I'm not-
agree with that.
And I'm not saying anyone's slacking off, don't get me wrong at all.
I agree with that.
It's just that everybody has so much on their plate, but if they know that's an important thing for the town, especially for the select board, okay, we better really push this up their wish list. So,
If I could, Mr. Dyer, even for the board. Now, last year, there were 9C cuts coming down from the state, right, where they actually cut the state budget. Now, the 9C cuts that they made were virtually all grants, right, so it really didn't affect the town budgets. But there could be a time when the town has to make hard budget cuts, right? And for you to have a goal listed here that may already be in progress, may already be funded, it might be something good for you to have, and you say, you know what, well, this is a goal of ours, we really don't want to touch the funding here. Yeah, I mean, those things can happen. So, again, I don't think it's a bad thing for you to have a goal that's already in motion, that's already been funded, which is generally the hardest thing of most of these goals, quite honestly, is to
So-
get the funding for them.
So to your point, there's one of two things. We could either have a monthly status on the housing production plan, as an agenda item and invite Mr. Bott in and say, can you give us an update each month on it? That would be an action that we would take, and we would get that. Or we just have the town administrator in his tick list of updating us each week or every other week or every once a month, say, I've met with Mr. Bott, this is where it's at, and then if we have a concern at that point, then we can say, okay, bring him in at the next meeting. I would think that would help to keep these things alive and give us status.
I think we should talk, I agree. It should be something at least once a month, not like a quarter, because then you're 2 quarters, 6 months behind. So it should be something minimum once a month. But let's go back to the original. What we're trying to do is to rank the top 3. And not to say that the rest don't have any merit. It's just the other items are very important as well.
Yeah, I think that's what Jim's question was. He wanted to understand is, from a board, what are we trying to drive and get done versus monitor?
right, so number 6 is probably my top priority.
Okay.
Also, number 7, I mean, I think that we have to get more involved in that, whether it's through the earth removal. That could probably be my 3rd. And then the 2nd, it would be number 9,
Okay.
to update make sure the master plan, home production plan, open space and rec plan are all updated.
Okay.
I'm torn. I've got 6, 5, and 1, and if you do 1, you kind of take care of 3 and 4, or at least it's a part of finding an answer for 3 and 4. I just wrestle with the clean drinking water is Jim states, very important, but I just don't know if we said go execute clean drinking water right now, what would you do? I don't think that's, I'm trying to think of what.
Well, I guess the most important thing I'd say right now that certainly we control, well, it's all our town wells, right? It's to continue to work with the town of Middleborough, who's providing clean drinking water right now to our residents of North Carver, which, we couldn't provide on our own. And then I'd kind of go back to look at, what we could protect, where that land is located, if it's close to wells. I'd also say, from what I can gather, there have been, I want to say, some mistakes made in the town of Carver. I hear of polluted sites, and trying to prevent those. I mean, those are the kinds of things you really want to be proactive about, I think,
I guess when I maybe I misunderstood number 7 though. When I look at that, I mean, I guess I already think we, in the town administrator goal, we put the North Carver Water District in there. So that's already there. When I read this, I think more about residents' private individual wells, not so much the town well or the North Carver Water District well. I'm thinking of your well and my well and everybody else's well. That's what I'm thinking.
No,
of.
I agree. This is the aquifer. This is the aquifer.
And that's very important. It's just sort of hard for the board
Yeah.
to sit here and have an agenda item tonight that says, okay, we're going to do this.
But to Mr. Hoffman, we've, and I've heard the same, residents are always concerned about the earth removal, and I
Sure.
don't really understand, it's, how serious is that? And where do you manage that, and how do you manage that? And is it impacting, will it cause future problems and things like that? So I think that's where this was all coming from. I actually put this one in there, before, but it was just, from hearing from residents and understanding these things that are going on. What are we doing? What policies? What can we do? Bylaws or whatever we have to do to make sure that we ensure, look the whole North Carver situation was a shame, what happened up there and the pollution that happened and all that. So it's just making sure that stuff doesn't happen.
I think though, and Mr. Canning, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't the Earth Removal Committee just hire Kevin Forg to sort of follow up on their inspections and permits to make sure everything's the way it should be, and as a more of a professional, I think the board was doing those follow-ups themselves before.
Correct.
So that is a step in the right direction, to have a professional following up on all those permits and making sure everything's appropriate, the way it's supposed to be, so.
But that's the kind of things we don't know, so that was probably what this was all about, is how do we understand what we need to protect and what's actually happening? So it's kind of like a report. What is the state of the Carver with respect to the aquifer and the clean drinking water? Where are we today? What do we need to do for policies in the future to make sure we protect it?
I think this is almost one of the easier goals, just because getting involved, like Mark, what you had just said with Mr. Fogg being involved in that now, just to find out, and not only for our knowledge, but to let the public know that what you're reading on Facebook isn't 100% accurate. That this is what's done now. I'm sure there are some instances that are under question. Let's find that out. And that's why I think by working with earth removal and now with Kevin, I think we can attain that goal fairly quickly.
Right.
At least be updated and ask for updates all the time on that.
That'd be a great idea to put in a newsletter.
Yeah. And Serpent, like we said, Serpent might have resources that help us to stay on top of this or have recommendations of do's and don'ts.
All right.
All right.
I'm going to wrap this up. I'm going to say that for me, it's going to be 5. Then I'm going to say 1 because it takes care of part of 3 and 4. But I'm skipping 6 and going with 7 on the clean drinking water component because that is something that I think is key. 6, I think, partially gets covered in TA goals with regards to, the whole forecast, budget, timeline, and everything else.
So I'll change where I had my number 1 to 7 because I had originally wanted this at the top 2, but I figured people more financial, so if we want to keep that in our purview as one of the tops, I think both of you guys had that in the top 3, so I'll change my number. The one that I had number 1 in my list. I'll change that to 7.
And not to say the other ones aren't important, and I think it might be something where once a month we have a meeting as a status update. Nothing to be gauged at, but so-and-so's working on this, so-and-so's working on that, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I think some of it could certainly just be a checklist. I don't think Mr. Blatt needs to come to a meeting to tell us where he is on that housing production plan, There'll be a time frame for it, he'll let us know how he's doing, when there's, I'm sure I'd like to report back to the board if I did one sentence.
He seems to come before the board on a fairly regular basis for one thing or another anyway, so.
Okay.
All right, so back to the agenda.
So we just finished our 8:30 item? No.
Yep.
Are we taking a vote, or are we just leaving it as we've discussed it and we're good?
I don't think we need to have a vote. I think
Okay.
we just sort of expressed our concerns and.
All right.
I'm interested to see the numerics that we gave you when the rankings come out, maybe do a formal vote then, as far as what the results look like. All right, approval of executive session minutes for June 18th.
I think you skipped one.
Nope, approval of minutes for June 26, 2024, and July 9th, 2024. I guess we'll take the first, June 26th first. Do we have
Make a motion to approve June 26 minutes.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And
Make a motion to approve July 9th minutes.
I'll second
we
it.
have a motion, we have a second. Any other issues, questions, or concerns?
I do. There were a couple things that were missing, so I'd like to see them corrected. I remember when Ms. Praval was in here talking about, the money that we had to spend at the end of the year, that whole scramble of trying to, and there was some mention that we could have started the process. I think she said something like March we could have started. So that was missing from the minutes, so I'd like to see that get in there.
Might I suggest that we table this until the
Yeah,
next meeting? And
let's
Mr.
table it.
Ryan could email his
Yeah.
concerns, that we could add those to the minutes and approve them at that time?
So, yeah, so basically, it's what Ms. Praval talked about. I'd like to see some of the details, because she was getting into a process where we could have started this in March. We also made mention of special town meetings in the future to not wait until the end of the year, like to have to deal with it. We ended up in a situation where it was the 11th hour, so I just would like to capture that discussion a little bit more. And then we did have, even though we took no vote on the goals, we had discussion around the goals, and there was some statements made that I didn't see those in the minutes, so I'd like to see those. So that's the two things, the discussion around the goals that we had at the last meeting, plus the comments from Ms. Praval in the special town meeting. I'd like to see those get in the
So maybe
minutes.
Shelby could just review the meeting and, bring up some of those items.
We have a motion and a second, though, so we need to withdraw the motion.
I'll withdraw that motion.
I'll
Yes.
withdraw my second.
All right. What is
Make a
the-
motion to approve the executive session minutes of June 18th.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Make a
Opposed,
motion to
0.
approve the July 9th executive session minutes not for release.
We have
Second.
a motion, we have a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, 0. Going back, I think we covered everything else. I think we're back down to select board announcements. Mr. Ryan?
Wish everybody continued enjoyment of the summer that we're having, and remind people of Old Home Day that's coming up to, enjoy that. And then we also have the farmers market on Sundays, so just remind you that that's a good event to take in and support.
Thank you. Mr. Townsend?
Thanks. I also want to remind everybody about Carver Old Home Day coming up this Saturday. It's really one of the things that makes Carver special, so I hope to see everybody there. Also, Carver Night Out is coming up on August 8th, and that's always a great event over at the middle high school. And just one final thing, I had an opportunity earlier this week to attend the barbecue at the Council on Aging put on by the Carver Police. It's a great event. Just congratulations to Connie Kelly and her staff, as well as the police who did all the cooking. It was a great event. It was great to see everybody.
Thanks.
Great. Mr. Hoffman?
I just want to also remind people about Carver Old Home Day on Saturday. It's like Mr. Townsend said, and Mr. Ryan, great event, and it's great just to stop by and see all the people. That's it.
Again, for me, Old Home Day as well. Great. It's a great time, especially watching the clam bake, and it's a lot of things for the kids. It's a fun time to enjoy a good day out with your neighbors. I'd also like to remind people with regards to these heat waves that we've had, that just to keep keep your thoughts of the elderly around us that could be affected by these temperatures, because the last couple of weeks have been pretty brutal. All right. With that, do we have next meeting is August 6th. Did we take a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, everyone. Good night.